Good evening, folks. How are we doing? I'm here with Guru Billy Brown for the fourth time because we've had a lot of fun. And
Boom.
today we're going to speak about mindset since there is a lot of people that asked us about that subject, which is a very important subject within our field. Um, Obviously, for the people that don't know you, Billy, a lot of people do, but for the people maybe that watch this show for the first time, do you want to give us
Yeah.
a little introduction to who you are, what you do, and all that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, quick and to the point. I started training martial arts 1984. Uh, I didn't have a choice. My father, that was what we did. We didn't go to the movies. He made me kick trees and punch cardboard and spar with butter knives that were taped with electric tape. So I kind of grew into it. And when he passed away, I'm sure he never knew that his passion or his hobby was going to become my passion, but it did because it kind of connected us. And ever since then, I'm into that and stayed in that realm of martial arts. Started being a club doorman at 18 years old to support my school that I opened at 17 years old. I lied about my age to sign the lease, and I didn't know anything about the business side, which is the hardest part of running a business, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I started, I started working club doors in New Orleans, Louisiana, of all places, and I did that for 20 years. And in that 20 years, I was definitely had a huge awakening and learned a lot through blood, pain, and heartache, and and through it all. So now I teach combatives, and I try to instill those kind of a lot of instructors lack that reality based side, which is not bad. I wouldn't wish that on any instructor at all to go through what I went through to learn those lessons.
Yeah.
But it does give me, I think, a step up to know them and to be able to educate people to learn those lessons without having to go through them like I did. So in a short, that's me. If you want to learn more, just put my name in Google.
Okay. Great stuff. We already had some banging conversations the last few times. So let's dive in the meat of it straight away. Mindset. So we speak about mindset, and I think mindset is a very important subject because the mind is everything. Everything starts with the mind, and
Yes.
it's like you want to get your head right, you want to get your mind right, so that the body will function properly. Otherwise, nothing functions if the mind is not there. But let's say for some people that do have that mindset naturally, some people are born with it and some people are not. So for some people there is a necessity to actually create and develop that mindset, which is stuff
You
that
know,
we definitely speak about.
you know,
But
the people that are born with it. Let me say this: mindset is probably the most neglected area in the martial arts school, the modern martial arts school today. The combative
yeah,
mindset, actually, learning what the body goes through when we go through life and death, the chemical responses, the mental
yeah,
and emotional responses, the most overlooked area. And the reason
mm,
why is merely because of experience. Those that
yeah,
are
because most
born,
people know.
those that are born in a health in a middle wealthy home. I'm not saying you don't
Yeah,
have to be rich, but you just get my point. In a wealthy home and have everything handed to them, they're not going to experience and learn that
yeah,
mindset as quick as those of us that were born in very unstable situation. I think
yeah.
experience is the best teacher. And
You're
I
very,
think
very
sometimes
right.
some people start learning experience at birth. I was
Yeah.
dead
Oh
when
yeah.
I was dead when I was born. My feet were turned completely backwards, and they had to put me in rehab because I was addicted to drugs when I came out of the womb. So as
Mm,
yeah, good job. So and dad, I can't just throw the buck on her. So some of us experiencing it very early. And I think
Mm.
that when we talk about combative with this lesson is today, I think experience you have to talk about first, because experience is conditioning, and
Trauma.
conditioning is what leads to
That's
mindset.
that's what it is, isn't it? The mindset is built through trauma. You know,
That,
all the traumas that you go through your childhood and how you deal with it would kind of mold your perspective and mold your personality.
that's
And
right.
and you know yourself, the first 7 years of your life, the earliest you go through those traumas, the earliest you're thrown in the lion pit. Yeah, the earlier you're gonna
Yeah.
absorb all that thing. And I'm like you, man. I mean, I grew up in, how do you call that? Like council estates in France.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then after I moved to Eastern Europe, and everywhere I went, it was always some shitty neighborhood. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
like you experience that suffering from a young age, and there's nothing more. I've always been a loving guy. Do you know what I mean? I realized that later on when I had my spiritual awakening, when I calmed down, that do you know what? There is a kind heart behind all this. Do you know what I mean? And I've
Yeah.
always been that kind-hearted person. I always wanted to be around people and smile and laugh and love people and be
Well,
loved. Do you know what I
kind of
mean?
an enigma, because the most dangerous people I've ever met, and
Mm,
I know many of them, I was raised by them,
yeah, yeah.
are also the most compassionate and loving. But
Because
it seems like the people who don't have the ability of extreme violence if needed
mm,
are the most
you need to
hate.
have one extreme in order to get the other extreme. Like one doesn't go without the other one. And for a long time, that's been my, let's just say that until age 25, really my focus was to become the most badass motherfucker on the planet, so
Me
that
too. Me
so
too.
that I would become a word that I love, unfuckwithable. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? That's what I was training for. Do you know what I mean? To become that
yeah,
person,
yeah,
because I suffered, because in my head I was like, no way I'm gonna let anyone, walk on my feet anymore. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
then at some point I went from that extreme to the other extreme, to explore the light. So basically you'll dive into the darkness for a while, and then one day you'll find the light, and you will dive into the light, and you'll realize that the further you dive into the light, the more the dark path elongates too. One doesn't go without the other, man. It's like in the Kybalion, it's two aspects
Yeah.
of the same thing. It's finding the
Yeah.
perfect equilibrium between the two.
And
Yeah.
it's funny. That's why me and you get along so well, because we have such a similar type of upbringing, with our fathers and
Yeah.
stuff. But I think that to understand violence at the core, at the beginning, this is the
Mm,
hard part. This is the hard part. What I'm about to say. To understand violence at the core, at the beginning, is merely through experience.
yeah.
Merely. You can train all you want, and I've seen the best fucking martial artists in the world that couldn't fight their way
Mm.
on that
It's
hot
not it's not
concrete out there.
violence. Yeah,
You know,
it's not violence. Do you know that
yeah.
feeling when you work on the doors and you see somebody get his head kicked in properly? And I know you and I have seen that countless times.
Oh,
You get this ugly feeling, this ugly energy in the air that's got nothing to do with anything that you do on the tatami, in the
it has
dojo,
nothing
or
to
even
do
in
with
the
your
ring.
martial arts experience. It has nothing to do with your championship martial art victories. It
Yeah,
has nothing to do with your trophies and with your belts. It has
nothing
nothing
at all,
to do
man.
with your time in the cage or your time in a gi rolling around horizontal on the ground. It's pure violence, and violence is never prejudice. It doesn't
Violence,
care
yeah,
who
violence
you are.
doesn't care about your marital status, your race, your religion, it doesn't care who you are, where you come from. When
Nothing.
violence has decided
That's it.
to put
Yeah.
its claw on you, that's it. It doesn't matter, and it's
That's
ugly.
it.
It
Yeah.
stinks.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what do you think? So, one thing I wanted to speak about is the difference between mindset for survival. So you hear a lot of people speak about the mindset to survive, mindset for survival. But how about the difference between mindset for survival versus the mindset to totally prevail and win and go home without a single scratch. Why? Because let's say if what you focus on is mindset for survival and you mess up, then you're dead, innit? There's nothing to go to after that. But if your mindset, if your goal, if your objective is to totally prevail and win and go home without a single scratch and you fuck up, then at least you'll survive, innit?
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a different, but what do you think about that? That people speak about mindset for survival.
This is what I think about it. I think that you shouldn't. I think that you should try to learn and focus on detaching the physical harm aspect of that can happen. This is the hard part, and we can get deeper into this. But when you learn to detach, I watched a movie the other day called After Earth.
After Earth.
Have you seen this?
With Will Smith.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fucking good movie. I like it. Yeah.
Quote, great movie. Don't talk about his wife. Great movie. Listen, he made
G.I. Jane. Keep my wife's name out of your mouth.
He made a quote. He said, "Fear is false." He said
fear
that
is not real. It's in the mind.
It's not real. He said we have lied to ourselves. He said danger is very real, but fear is a choice.
Yep.
Now, this is the thing about that. It was a movie we watched, and he was a badass, new age, master alien killer. I get that. But in reality, it's total truth, because the more experience we have dealing with violence, the less detached we become of it.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important, to become detached from it, because bottom line, fear isn't going to help me live. Fear isn't going to help me survive. Fear isn't going to help me become victorious. All fear is going to do is hinder my responses. That's all it's going to do.
That's something I'm going to touch on fear later on. It's in my list, but you're right, bro. The thing with fear is that there are various degrees of fear, and there are various things that we fear. Very often, fear will just interfere with our response, with the quality of our response. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
But we'll speak about this later on. But there is also such a thing as the useful fear. The useful fear is just the acknowledgement of danger. When you're like, whoa, okay, it's not even. You can call that fear, but I don't even call that fear.
That's what I was about to say. It's not fear. That's acknowledgement of danger.
Exactly. The acknowledgement of danger is just a signal in your brain where you realize that you could potentially lose a limb or you lose your life if you keep with your course of action.
And that should be a driving force, though.
Yes.
It gets to the point, and this is the catch-22. Do you use that term in the catch-22? It means like there's a good coin, a good side, and a bad side to it. Yeah. It's a catch-22. The catch-22 is fear can, like, if I think there's a saber-tooth tiger over here talking about our ancestors, I go this way. That was a healthy use of fear. You get what I'm saying? But if there's a saber-tooth tiger in my closet and I'm in the closet with it, fear, there's nowhere to go.
Or if there is a saber-tooth entering the tent where your family is.
Yes, exactly.
It's going to be a completely different response then.
Exactly. So the issue is fear shuts human beings down. And the reason why fear shuts human beings down is because of purely, no other reason, a lack of educational experience. That's it. There's no other reason. Because a lot of things we fear, really, we shouldn't fear.
Yeah.
I mean, think about your daily stresses in life. You can stress about a bill that's due
exactly
a week from now, and we fear about it, and we're like, shit, I don't have the money right now. A bill's due. all that's going to do is hinder your action steps in the making the bill paid.
It's
That's
it's
all that's going to
interesting.
do.
It's interesting you said that. Now that we're talking about fear, let's just go into it. I was saving it for later, but I'll tell you what you just said is something I wanted to touch on at some point. Is that every single thought, every single feelings, emotion, or actions or words that we take, that we have, is either based on that positive energy or that negative energy. And the negative energy, the mother of all negative energy, is fear. And the mother of all positive energy is love. Yeah. But that's exactly the same thing. So when you say, for example, your alarm rings in the morning, yeah, and you snooze it because you stayed up late the night before and you snooze it, and then at some point, when you snooze it 5 times, you open your eyes and you're like, fuck, and you look at the time and you're late, and now it's time to kind of jump in your clothes and go to work, and now you got that fear. It's not a mortal fear, it's not a fear of death, but it's the fear of being late to work, the fear of having a bad impression on yourself, the fear of losing your job, the fear of not having enough money to provide for your family, to pay for your rent, do you know what I mean? And all
And
these little fears that come in that come
let's
into
be
play
honest, most of these fears that we fear through life,
are
they're
useless.
not life threatening.
No,
They're not even that. They're not even threatening our way. They're our conditioning of life.
it's true.
They're just mental blocks. They're
Yes.
mental roadblocks. So when you talk about combatives and when you talk about dispatching a guy that's trying to take your life or a
Yeah.
guy that's trying to harm you, all these things pop up. Now, we're not talking about the chemical imbalances the body goes through. We're not talking about that yet. But all these thoughts go through, and what they do is if there's a long water pipe,
Yeah.
and each foot of the water pipe is a different area or a different step forward in your life. Every time you have any kind of these delusionary fears, it clogs that area, and you got to climb through it to get further to the pipe. Does
Yeah.
that make sense at all?
No,
Is that
it's
a bad
true, it's true,
analogy?
it's true. No, I
So,
like the analogy, bro.
so fear clogs our reality.
It's true.
It clogs it. It
And that's the
stops our
thing.
forward movement.
It's like fear kind of prevents you from thinking straight, prevents you from taking the right action. Because do you know, when you're fearful, you will rush. When you rush, you're not thinking things out properly. Do you know what I mean? And that's when you're prone to make mistakes, and that's what usually happens. So do you know, when you say some people say, oh, fear could actually save you, I don't agree with that, man. The
No,
acknowledgement of danger will save you.
there's
But
a difference.
yes, the
Danger
acknowledgement
is very rare, very real. Fear, on the other
yes,
hand, is
is
a
not real. It's
conscious
an
thought.
illusion.
It's
Yeah.
a constant decision to be afraid.
But see basically how it happens. You got that signal. So through your senses, through your 6 senses, I believe that we got 6 or even more, yeah, but you will pick up the situation, yeah? You will absorb the situation through your senses, your eyes, you will hear it, you'll smell it, you'll feel it, whatever. And then the amygdala will be triggered, and at that point, yeah, you have a signal. This is a signal, and that signal is like, whoa, danger ahead. After this, whether you choose to start making yourself movies, oh, if I'm going there, I'm gonna die. If this happens, about that, and then you start making movies in your head about things that you don't
There you
know.
go.
You don't know. It's unreal. It's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of not knowing what the outcome will be, and that
Listen,
that is what fear is.
people get hurt in violence
Yeah,
many times only because they can't get away. They can't get. They're standing in front of themselves.
yeah, yeah.
They can't get out of the way of themselves.
Have you not
You
noticed this?
think that our ancestors, when they were fighting saber-tooth tigers every day and they
Yeah,
were hunting food, you think they were afraid? No, they made a calculated decision. We engage this beast or we retreat. It's not
yeah.
fear, it's logical.
Mm,
Now, again, though, it's conditioned emotion, is what I
yeah.
call it. You have to condition the emotion because
Mm,
emotion will shut people down. I saw it for 20 years
mm,
on doors.
mm.
I had named MMA stars. If I named them right now, you'd be like, you're shitting me. Come through that got their asses beat on the street. And I get some of the beating, I will say. And it's not because they wasn't good fighters or good athletes, but it's because they had no distinction on how to separate the real from the drill or the reality from the, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they let their fit, because it's very different to be in a sporting arena than it is to be somebody that spits in your face and throws a brick at you. It's very different kind of world.
Yeah. No,
so it's very true. So I think conditioning is the first part. Some people are born with it, I believe. They're not born with a lack of it, of fear. They're born with a more understanding of it because of their upbringing. It's never a lack of fear. If a tiger walked up to me right now, I wouldn't laugh.
It's a human emotion, yeah.
You get what, or I wouldn't lack fear. Of course, I'm going to lack fear. Or let's be more realistic. A snake, a big, like you were talking about earlier, a big poisonous snake, and you proved what we were talking about. You handled it. You did it. It didn't shut you down like it does most people. You didn't run and call the local snake guy to come handle the snake. You did it. It's not that you lack the fear. It's that you lack the ability to be shut down by it. And I think that's really the mindset is. Fear can shut a person down, a fighter. It can shut a fighter down.
Yeah.
You know?
It's recognizing it. It's recognizing the early signs of it, which is what I spoke to you about. That signal that says to you, danger ahead. And then by conditioning yourself to go, right, okay, danger ahead. What is likely to follow that signal is fear. Do I want to go that way or do I not want to go that way? Do I want to shut this emotion down before it actually takes amplitude? You know what I mean?
And the problem is when somebody gets bombarded by the fear factor, and they get all of those chemicals hitting their body, the cortisol, the adrenaline, all this shit, they forget that they may have to pull trigger. That's the biggest thing, because fear can make you not pull trigger. And the only way sometimes to get out of the fear situation is to fucking pull trigger. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. That I definitely will speak about. It's funny because, you and I got very, very similar knowledge about all that stuff, and now you're talking about it, and you're raising all the points that I'm gonna touch on. I just like to
I'll jump around a lot.
I like to get to one point and break it down to the core. That's what we wanted to do, to do like a deep dive. And so for the fear, when we say fear, there is these acronyms. I don't know if you're familiar with it. The false evidence appearing real, and the face everything can rise, or fear everything can run.
Yes.
I really like that because it
I do too.
reflects.
I do too. Yeah.
What is the primal fear of every single living being? Is the fear of death, isn't it?
That's it.
And now think about it, when you meditate.
Bodily harm,
Say again?
Or severe bodily harm.
I think
that's even more so. In my experience, I think that's even more so. It's not death. I don't fear death. I got very introduced with death at a very young age. And since then, I've had 18-year-old young men die in my arms. So it's not the fear of death. It's the fear of being maimed to the point where you can't sustain a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, well, that is even worse. But do you know, let's say if you've been through a near-death experience, I know I have a few times. We all have maybe different stories. Some people went through, near-death experience by accident, by violence. And people like me, accident, and also the use of psychedelics, for example. But when you go through this state where you think you're going to die, and your ego goes, no, because your ego believes that you're going to die. And at some point, there is a voice, the voice that comes from within and that goes, right, that's it now, mate. You're going to die. And that's all there is to it. And you can't do fuck all about it. So just accept it. And from the moment you accept it and you realize you're still here, something has shifted in you. Something since those days, bro, something absolutely shifted in me that now I do not see death the same way. I'm like, if it's my turn, if it's my time, it's my time. You know, if it's your time, you could do anything you fucking want to avoid it. If it's your time, it's your time. And the same way that sometimes if it's not your time, you might be run over, you might be shot 10 times, stabbed 20 times. If it's not your time to go, it's not your time to go, man.
Yeah.
So the fear of death, I think, is something that
I wrote something very similar in my upcoming book. That sometimes it's plain fucking luck. And I believe that. When I was run over by that Jeep, it could have been 20 different ways I could have went. It really could have went just than what it did. I broke both feet, almost lost a foot. That could have been my throat, my head. It could have been my wife, who is 100 pounds lighter than me, that wouldn't have been able to take being run over by a monster truck, basically. It could have been a lot of different scenarios. But none of that contributes to the mental drive that you need to succeed in life. But not only succeed in life, you needed to succeed through shit. You needed to succeed through violence. And I think that is the number one thing that people, whenever I got it, the last 10 years of me working club doors, whenever I got any by the way, I was totally numb by that time. Totally numb. Which is not necessarily good, and we can talk about that today or another time, but I was totally numb by it. And a lot of the guys in the bad altercations I got into, it wasn't by people that necessarily couldn't beat my ass. I consider myself very competent, but I'm talking about pro athletes. We had a big pro football town. I mean, college town. Very young kids when I was already the last decade of my career, I was already in my mid and late 30s. Yeah. These guys were 22-year-old athletes benching, 500 pounds. I mean, it was the understanding of the animalistic intention that you need.
We'll speak about this. I'm still in fear, bro. I'm still in fear. I thought there's some really interesting points as well. Is the different fears. Imagine now there is something else that people are afraid of when it comes to getting the right mindset and getting into a fight. It's the fear of pain and the fear of inflicting pain. How do you deal with this, bro?
Well, I don't really feel. When I say this, I mean, just understand it, but I don't feel pain like I think a normal guy does. Pain, I've lived with pain my whole life, and I live with it to this day. Chronic pain, emotional pain. I mean, I'm very comfortable with pain. What I'm not comfortable with is the ability to stop a person in front of me that's trying to inflict more pain on me. Even though I'm comfortable with it, doesn't mean I want it.
Yeah, of course.
So I think that that's a big thing for people like us, because a lot of people are not comfortable with pain. They may think they're winning, but if I fucking stick my thumb in their eye and elbow their face one time, they shut down. When I'm the one bleeding and have my face cut open, they had me. 4 guys on me, they had me. But one shot changes the game because they're not comfortable with it. And this is the reason why, because they think that pain is an indication to quit. I think that pain is an indication to go harder. That's the difference. Do you get my point? Like when I hurt, I go harder.
So you heard somebody, depending on the mindset, you heard somebody, and that's going to make them even more pissed off. well, you maybe hurt somebody else and they're going to start crying and backing off. Do you know what I mean?
The more I get hurt, the more I hit that. If you're a video game guy, which I'm not, but if you're a video, you ever used to play the old games where you press the button repeatedly till it fucking something happens? That's my mindset. You hit me, I'm pressing the button till fucking something happens. That's just me. I mean, that's just my mentality.
Now, you see, so there is this, of course, being comfortable with pain helps you not being afraid of it. So as for that, it basically removes some sort of blockage that you go to. You said, something that would stop you to go to a fight because you're afraid of getting hurt, or you're afraid of hurting the other person. I know for me, for a long time.
Excuse this fucking weed eater over here. Excuse that guy, this fucking weed eater next door.
What is he doing?
So there's a guy weed eating. I don't know if y'all can hear it. I hope not.
I can't hear anything.
Fuck.
Well,
excuse that if you do. He should be done soon. But
so when I was younger and I was going through that phase of I was getting bullied a lot, and for a long time I didn't defend myself because I was victim of fear. And for a long time I had these different fears. So of course I had the fear of pain. I had the fear of also inflicting pain because I'm a good guy. I don't like to hurt people. Do you know what I mean? But it's something that if you fight for your life, you got to get over that shit. You got to dehumanize the person in a fraction of a second.
Yes.
But the other thing, the big thing for me was the fear of losing control and the fear of consequences. Yeah. And that was a very big thing for me.
Yes. And those are all valid points that people should think on those. I never had the fear of consequences for some reason. I don't know why.
That comes with moral compass as well.
It does. But like my mentality was always, you're trying to hurt me, I'm going to fucking do you. And whatever happens, happens afterwards. I'm just going to deal with it. Luckily, I only been brought to court twice. And both times I won. So, and that's out of hundreds of altercations. So I was very lucky. Some of them involving blades.
Yeah.
But each time I was either hurt or outnumbered, and it was very much favorable to me. But you should, and I cannot tell my students more. You should not. Don't do what I do. Do what I say. You should
do what I say. Don't do it.
Yes, you should definitely be aware of the legalities and all of that. But sometimes, and you see this in today's law enforcement situations, they're so scared to engage now that they die. Or they're so scared to engage that schools get shot up when all you needed to do was breach that fucking front door, shoot the bad guy, be done with it. But they're so scared to do that now because they're thinking about the aftermath, so to speak.
Yeah. But that's the thing. They're thinking about consequences. What if I shoot? What if I end up shooting a kid? What if I don't do that? What if I get shot?
The reason why is because you don't rely on your training. If you trust your training, you trust your equipment, you should be okay.
And then they're not trained enough anyway. We know that.
That's a whole different story. Not even nearly enough. So yeah.
What would you say? What would you say? Because there is another type of fear which I call the useful fear.
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
I think if there's a thing called useful fear, that it needs to be what I would call driven fear. It needs to fucking drive the mechanism. It needs to drive the target. It needs to push you forward. Because if it's useful, you know that either you move forward or you die.
Yeah. And
that's when it becomes useful.
And it's quite, for a lot of people, it's counterintuitive to move forward when the danger is coming at you. It's the same thing, Billy, when somebody comes at you with the bat and you don't have enough space, you got a wall behind you, you don't have enough space to move back, you got to move in. And it's counterintuitive because you're like, most normal people do not want to go in because you just want to move away from the bat. But in fact, the best
And
thing
they
you
think
can
if
do
they
is
move
touch
away,
in.
they're, especially we've seen it. You
Mm.
not so much in the UK, but in America, we've seen it. If you move away from the active shooter, you're just as dead. You're
You're
just
fucked.
moving
Yeah, yeah.
away.
You're
So
giving him the advantage because the
that's it.
biggest advantage of a
That's
firearm is the distance. Yeah.
it. And even with a bladed weapon, if
Mm.
I have if I have a bladed weapon and I'm pushing you forward, if you're moving back, all you're doing is defending. And the thing about a blade, there you go. That's a nice one. And the thing about a blade is all meat is good meat. So
Yeah.
the more you defend, the more I win.
Mm.
So at that point, move the fuck in and neutralize it and attach to the weapon bearing limb, put pressure and blunt force trauma on the CPU. That's the only way to really stop it.
Mm.
No? No,
True.
I'm not
True.
saying if you got a lot of space and the luxury, you can jump in your car and leave. Base case scenario, do it. Leave. Get the fuck out.
Yeah, of course, if you got an opportunity too, but if all these options have failed, if you fail to physically remove yourself via
Yeah,
observational awareness, if you fail to avoid an escape, you fail to de-escalate, then you got to fight, innit? There's no other option. Or maybe it's a situation where you got to fight. That's it. There's no other option. You got to get your head right. And that's a bit the difference between, we were talking about the difference between combat sports mindset. And I'm in no way putting these guys down because these guys are some of the best
athlete.
fucking warriors out there, athletes, like martial
No,
athletes.
no joke.
The mindset to
No
keep
joke.
going forward, that is amazing. That is amazing. But there is a big difference between that sporting platform mindset and the actual military mindset. Soldiers are trained a certain way for a reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why soldiers, like real hardcore soldiers, are feared worldwide because
You know,
these
it's funny that you say that. I started working for the New Orleans Police Department when I was I became a defensive tactics instructor at 19, almost 20. And then later on, I got a whole Ranger battalion that I started years later, probably 10 years later. And I initially started training them the same way that I trained my cops. And one of my good friends, longtime student who hooked me up with the contract with the Rangers, he great guy, still to this day, great friend, badass too. He pulled me to the side. He goes, "You can't train these guys the way you trained your cops." And I'm like, "Why not?" He goes, "Because your cops, when they bust through a door, their mission is to subdue and cuff. When
different
we
rules of
bust through a
engagement.
door, our mission is to kill you."
Yeah, it's a
He
different
goes, "So
rules
you
of
have
engagement.
that's it." He goes,
Yeah.
"You have to change your mindset." Best advice I ever got. You
Mm.
have to change your mindset.
Yeah.
And I did. And he's right, because the way you train civilians and military and law enforcement and women and children, they're all different. You can have it on the same plane, but they're all different.
Yeah. Yeah. As the rules of engagement change, now you can allow yourself more things. It's the same with with my father when we were providing training for the military in Eastern Europe. To me, Billy, it was the most fun experience I ever had teaching because there was no limit. There was no limitation. We could do pretty much whatever the fuck we wanted. We could do some knife. We could do some of this. We could do some of that. We could demonstrate lethal options, lethal applications, how to snap a neck, how to, how to rip, tear, break, bite, gouge.
Everything.
All that shit was valid. You can't teach that stuff to the police because or to the security because their rules of engagement are completely different. So yeah, the mindset will be different. And that comes for me to think about. So mindset, where does it come from? And we spoke about this at the very beginning. Mindset comes from our experience and very often our traumatic experience and how we dealt with it and how it forged our
Now,
character.
the real question is this: can it be taught? Or can
That's
it be
where I'm coming
cultivated?
at, bro.
Or can it be cultivated?
That's
the real
where I'm
question.
coming at. So
I don't think it can be taught, but I think it can be cultivated. It's just like
cultivated.
speed. I was born with fucking muscle. My dad was extremely fast individual. Even at my higher weight through the years, I've been very fast, and I maintain that usually. I don't maintain other things like maybe footwork and stuff as much. But as far as initial speed, like weapon to target,
Yeah. Oh, bro, I've always been super impressed, man, by your explosiveness, bro. Especially for, I mean, I know a few people. There are a few people that are big and that retain speed, that move like a lightweight.
But it's like a handful of people that can do it. You know,
oh, there's not a
most
lot.
of them are powerful. Hell, I think I'm more fast than I am powerful.
Yeah.
But I think that when we can talk about tactics and all this other shit that we as we go on, but when we talk about the oh, this guy's pissing me off. God, can you hear
I
him?
see you looking to your
You
right.
still hear him? Oh man,
I can't hear him, man.
Woo.
So
anyway, what were we talking about? So, if you don't hear it, maybe they don't.
I tell you what. So do you know, there is something I used to watch when I was a kid, and I'm still watching it now. Like I grew up with it. Yeah, it's called Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, you tell me that. Yes.
And so, as far as I'm concerned, I've learned a lot about mindset watching Dragon Ball Z. And anyone that's watching us right now, that's listening to us, that knows what Dragon Ball Z is, or any Dragon Ball Z fan will understand exactly what I'm talking about. And that goes to me observing the different characters of this saga, Dragon Ball Z, in order to explain what we're talking about. People that are born with the mindset, because from a very young age they've been going through very traumatic experience that hardened them and turned them into that dominant personality that they are in an adult form, versus the person that was born, as a mummy's boy, crybaby, and that eventually at some point had to learn the hard way, but not straight away. And there was a shift, and it was very, very difficult. And so, if you know about Dragon Ball Z, example number one is Vegeta, which is Prince of all Saiyan, born from a king, tough upbringing, load of traumas shaping the core of his personality from a young age, and he became that very, very nasty guy, you know what I mean, that never back up from a fight. Let's fucking have it. Do you know what I mean? And so imagine this on one side, and then on the other side, a character like Gohan, who's a mummy's boy, who's born from love, who's a crybaby, who had to learn how to fight, who was petrified by fear and let his friends down quite a few times because of his fear. And then one day there was a click, and at some point in the saga, he becomes the strongest character in the saga at that point, because he overcame his fear. And so when you look at these two examples that are day and night, that's where you see mindset cannot be taught. You can be guided. You can guide a person towards the experience to build and to develop, to cultivate that mindset. But you can't teach. Mindset is not something that you can teach to a student. The student has to go through real life experience. That's why I went to work the doors, man. That's why I went on the ring to fight. That's because I wanted to build that mindset. Without that experience, man, you can't. I can see that guy's pissing you off, bro. You're just looking at it.
Sorry. Yeah. No, I agree, man. Yeah, it can be cultivated, but it's. This is the thing, though. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Do we wish our students go through the same process we went through to learn it? I don't.
It depends who the student is. It depends of their personality. You got people that come to you just because they've been traumatized and now they want to learn how to defend themselves, but they don't have that aggression within them. And I have a lot of people like that coming to see me, bro. Or you got the guy that's already seasoned, that had a few boxing match, that had a few, Thai boxing, done a bit of Thai boxing, MMA, and you can see it on the facial expression. You can see the way people walk, the way they dress, the way they talk, the way they move, you know straight away who is game and
Yes,
who is
for
not.
sure.
So when you look at that, for example, the difference between these two people, okay, you can deepen the guy that's done it, yeah, the guy that's game, you can deepen his understanding of mindset, but he already has it. He's got the practice aspect of it. So you can give him more theory so that he can really understand the practice, yeah? But the person that doesn't have it, so how do you install that into the person that doesn't have it? You have to get
Oh,
them
that's the
to find
question. Yeah.
the fear of loss. You have to find that spark, find that antisocial animal inside. And
Yeah.
so I always say, every mother is a killer. Every
Yeah.
mother is a
That's
killer
true. Because
because
they have something to fight for.
yeah,
And I think that's a big part of the mindset game too. You
yeah,
have to realize what you're willing to fight for.
yes,
And is it more important than you freezing? Is it
hmm,
more important than you retreating? Is
yeah,
it more important than you saving face? You
yeah.
have to realize what you're willing to fight for. You
That
know?
you see, that's funny what you're saying. It's interesting. It's the same four questions that Lee Morrison speaks about it as well. It's the four questions that people need to ask themselves in order to build the right mindset. Is what do you live for? What are you ready to fight for?
There you
What
go.
what are you ready to die for? And what are you ready to kill for?
There you go.
And if you ask yourself these questions, you will get the same answer. It's going to be what you love the most, whether
There
it's
you go.
your children, your wife, your mother, your father, your dog, your turtle, your
There you
fish.
go.
It doesn't matter. But you find that motivation, have this, a lot of people are not willing to fight for themselves. They won't fight for themselves. They'll get beat up.
It's not that they're not willing to, they don't have the drive
They
button.
don't have the
They don't have
motivation.
the drive shift. They put it in neutral when violence occurs. They put it in neutral.
Have you seen that video? That woman, that mother with the baby in the house. The baby is in that bed. You know the bed with the fences, and there is the baby cam on the shelf, and you can see everything. And there is a big dude that fucking breaks into her house, and you can
Oh
see it all.
yeah.
And she gets, man, that's an ugly video. She gets beat up. I thought she was unconscious, bro. Like a man that's roughly your size, Billy, yeah, on the top of her, just unloading on her,
Oh,
and
it's
she
crazy.
wasn't
I
fighting
saw it.
back.
The knife. She ripped the knife out of his.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so when the guy, she didn't fight back
Now
when the
think
guy was
about it.
fighting
That
back.
woman would have been trained. She would have murdered that
Yeah,
dude. I
yeah,
mean,
but she
you
did.
know what I mean?
When,
But she did that on pure instinct.
but that was because of the baby, bro. You know,
That's it.
when the guy
You have to
turned around
realize
and
what you're
started to go to the
fighting
baby,
for.
something clicked in her. She went
And I
like,
have a lot to lose, man.
yeah,
I have a family. I
yeah,
have grandkids. I have a daughter. I'm not a good candidate to fuck with. I'm really
yeah,
not, because first off, I'm very good and comfortable with violence. Secondly, I have a lot to lose.
yeah,
So you have to realize what you have to lose. And I think that's important when it comes to talking about combative mindset. What do you have to lose?
the fear of
Is
loss. Yeah,
freezing going to help?
the
Well,
pain.
I'm not facing a grizzly bear. Do I
Mm,
just stand there with a grizzly and let him smell me and move on? I'm fighting another human being,
mm,
probably a psychopath that doesn't care about human life. Why
mm.
should I care about his human life?
No, for
He
sure.
doesn't care about mine.
But that's why there is a need to dehumanize, and we'll speak about this
Oh
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
That you see, for
Dehumanize.
example, like so if we speak about knowing thyself, know thyself, knowing what you're capable of, knowing how you can take pain. Can you take pain? Knowing how you deal with adrenaline, how you deal with fear, knowing what you're capable of, how far you're ready to go. And when you say, you got a lot of things to lose, that's one thing, thinking about your own life and losing your family because you're not going to be here anymore. It's not
Yeah,
even only about you. It's about the pain of your family, the pain of your wife's pain, your children's pain, the lack, the big hole that you're going to create when you leave them. You know what I mean? And if you go even further than that, if you start imagining stuff like, okay, if I die, I'm not going to be here anymore. That's one thing. But if I'm not here anymore, then my wife is not going to have a husband anymore. My children are not going to have a father anymore. I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. We're not going to be able to pay the fucking mortgage. The wife's not going to be able to pay the mortgage on her own. She's going to have to move to another place that might be a shitty neighborhood in a shitty place where you kids are going to have to go to a shitty school and they're going to get bullied, and that's going to create more and more and more generational trauma. So you're like, if you start thinking about all this, it's a way for you to access that righteous indignation, you know, and that should override fear.
Yeah. It should, but it doesn't, because this is why. This is why it doesn't. Because most times people are more shut down and afraid of their own personal harm than they are of others.
True.
Because this is why. Let's be real. I have heard stories from my grandfather who was there. The guy who raised me. He took all of the Pacific. He was in the famed 2nd Weapons Division of the Marine Corps. He was on every fucking island to end World War II. He was there. I have pictures of him with Japanese skulls that are just skulls in front of him. Okay, he was there. It's not the fear of others. It's the fear of yourself. But yet there are guys who get their arms blown off that win wars. There's guys that are impaled, guys that are shot, guys that can't, one leg gone, they still dispatch 30 fucking bad guys. It's the fear of self-harm, but in reality, human beings are made to drive forward. We're born to live and die. We're not born to live a little bit, then halt because of some fucking injury and die. If that was the case, I would have been dead a long time ago. We are designed to move forward. The problem is one little hiccup in the solar system of their pain circumference slows them down.
Yeah.
You got to detach that. You got to understand you're human. You're going to feel the pain. You're going to see the blood. You're going to do all this stuff. But that doesn't mean you're dead. That means you just got to push a little harder till you can seek the help you need to stay alive, but at least you get through it. That's what that means. Let's be honest. We shouldn't be here. You go to Australia where there's cats and sharks and everything kills you. You go to Africa, there's lions and there's people shouldn't live there, but yet they do. Not only do they live there, they thrive.
Yeah.
You know, but yet today's men get hit one fucking time and they're out of the game. So it's not fear, it's not understanding that you don't have to be weak even though you're a little scared.
Resilience.
Or you don't have to be weak even though you're a little hurt.
It's like resilience and determination.
Yeah. It's drive.
You know one thing, people looking at videos, certain videos that I put out sometimes where I really portray that aggression in every move that I do, and a lot of people are like, dude, you're going to go to jail. You're going to get jailed. You're crazy. This is not the thing.
I get that too.
I know you get that a lot. And for them to understand that level of aggression that people need to learn to be able to access on demand is to understand what we are facing, is to create a need to learn. Now, what are we facing? What sort of violence are we facing? What sort of violence are we talking about? What sort of violence are we preparing for? And that's where it will shift people's perspective because...
Hey, you may want to edit this out, but I think this fucker's done. Excuse my language. All right, carry on.
We'll leave that in there. It's like, if you understand now what level of violence, and violence does evolve. Violence has evolved with the years now. Back in the days of our grandparents, it was one-on-one. Let's go out. Let's sort it out. Like the Irish. The Irish. I got respect for the Irish in some ways because, okay, fighting is not an answer. Sometimes it is, and when it is, it's the only answer. But having said that, when you look at the way Irish people settle their dispute, they just go out, two one-on-one, mano a mano. They'll punch each other up for a few times. They might knock each other out, and then they'll shake hands. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, man. How many lives has the musket took?
The what?
The musket rifle, flint rifle. You gotta. How many lives? Hundreds of thousands of lives. The musket won wars, but yet we don't fight with a musket anymore.
Yeah.
Because violence evolves.
It evolved, bro. Absolutely, man. Now you got 10 people kicking you in the ribs, jumping on you with both feet while you're on the ground in a fetal position, man.
And they all think they're justified to do so.
Yeah, and everyone filming on their phone and laughing so that they can post it on social media.
Yes.
It's not the same thing now. And so that's where we go to knowing the enemy. Or knowing the enemy is understanding the criminal, understanding predatory behavior, understanding predatory motivation, understanding predatory psychology, how the criminal mind works. And if we study this, if we dive into this, then we will know what we're facing. Yeah. And by knowing what we're facing, by knowing the level of violence that we're facing, now we know that there is a need. There is a need to access this level 10, level 10 use of force, which is basically ultimately deadly force, lethal applications. They have their place in self-protection. A lot of people don't want to see that, but it has its place. It does. It might not be that.
This is the thing. First off, what you said was every place is different. Your place is so, knowing the enemy, like you said, is so important because every place is different.
Knowing the battleground, knowing the place.
And I think that crazy's crazy. Psychopaths are psychopaths. It doesn't matter the country. It doesn't matter the geography. It doesn't matter the logistics. You're going to get, let's be real. The UK has a long fucking history of bloodshed.
Oh, fuck, yes.
Oh, but people always say the UK don't have guns. We don't need guns either.
One of the most bloody story in the world, man.
So, just because of geography, is it going to stop bad people from being bad people?
Of course.
It's just a different legality. It's a different geography. It's a different sociality. It's a
culture.
Different in ways, but violence is violence. Chaos is chaos. And you heard the frog and the scorpion analogy. You've heard that probably 100 times, right?
No,
the frog and the scorpion.
Go on.
The frog is you've heard it.
I don't think so. Go ahead, man.
So the frog is going across the river, and right before he goes across the river, a scorpion walks up and says, "Hey,
it's in my nature."
Yeah. Why did you sting me? Because I'm a fucking
it's in my nature. Yeah.
It's me. It's what I do. And that's violence. That's chaos.
Yeah.
It's not prejudice. It doesn't care about geography. So although I have friends in the UK like you, and I have friends that they're different, and you guys can talk about our laws, and we could talk about y'all laws, and we could talk about this and that and this. But in reality, violence is violence, chaos and chaos. There are bad people where you are. There are bad people where we are. So how do we respond? Sorry, a wasp. How do we respond? How do we respond to this type of stimulus? And the response should be, quite frankly, moving forward. And what I mean by that, that's been my credo for the last 20 years. Keep moving forward. You see me posted on all my sign-outs. Keep moving forward. People think that that's some philosophical, and it is. It works in all situations. But in reality, it means that if a bad guy's in front of me, I'm going to fucking take his space, and I'm going to move through him. I'm going to move forward. I'm going to dispatch him, and I'm going to get home. That doesn't mean where I'm at. If I come visit you in UK, same thing. Yeah. Australia, same thing. Same thing. It doesn't matter. What we need to work on, though, is how do we have the mindset to switch the switch? Do we freeze? Do we turn the lights off, or do we turn the fucking lights on and go forward?
Flick the switch on. Yeah.
The switch. That's the hardest thing. That's where you get into the science of the combatives.
Yeah.
ABC, attack behavioral cues. The PI5, perceive the threat, analyze the threat, formalize an attack plan, initiate muscle skill.
Version of the OODA loop, innit?
Yeah, that's it. The OODA loop. I made it a little more user friendly, but yes, the OODA loop.
I like you know, Tim Kennedy. I like his the 4 A's, which is awareness. One sec. How is it? Awareness, analyze. No, awareness, action, analyze.
Yes.
Awareness, assessment. Awareness,
analyze.
Analysis. Yeah, that's a pretty good one as well.
Yes. And then you have the whole thing of role reversal. Have you heard this term?
Role reversal. Yes. Reverse the predatory prey dynamic. Yes.
And that you have that right there does a bunch of things because it not only enables you to become the attacker, and I use that because I don't want people to. You have to become the attacker if you're being attacked, or you're just going to be the attackee. You have to role reverse that. Yeah. You have to become that fucking predator and turn that
defense is offense
and go forward. You have to. And that alone will probably save your life more times than any.
Yeah.
People, man, I can switch energy on and make people piss themselves. I've done it. My wife can contest. If she was here and she's at work, she has seen it. She worked some of my club doors the last 7 years of my career. And I literally stopped really badass people who thought they could fight just by talking to them and looking them in the eyes. And, you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also energy is very transferable.
Yes.
I know that the whole thing of internal martial arts is very frowned upon right now.
Misunderstood and mocked. Yeah.
It's mocked, but there's a thing to it. There's a thing of throwing energy on people. You know when someone walks in the door. I knew a guy who was Elvis Presley's bodyguard. He also sparred Bruce Lee every weekend that Bruce was in town. Okay. He was an Ed Parker black belt, an amazing old man, Grandmaster Jim Thompson. And he told me, first off, the stories he told me of Elvis is way better than the stories he told me of Bruce Lee, but that's another topic. But he said that when Elvis walked in the building, every motherfucker there turned and looked. Even if they didn't know he was there, they felt that energy. And you get what I'm saying? He just had that magnetic
auric, strong auric field.
That's it. Yeah, and he said that was the most remarkable thing he said about Elvis. He said that when he was around, you knew he was there. And I think that's important for people like us, because when we get approached with violence, we have to flip the script and become that magnetic push.
Yeah, reverse the magnetic
polarity.
Polarity. Yeah.
And all this shit takes time to practice because you need confidence in yourself. Like, listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I have low confidence in certain areas of my life. Like, I moved to Florida and I lost everything and I'm having to rebuild everything. Of course, that breaks a man down. But right now, if fucking Mike Tyson walked in here and talked shit, I would murder him. Murder him. And I believe that wholeheartedly. I wouldn't box him. I'm not saying that. He would murder me. But that's the mentality you have to have when your family's getting attacked by some nobody. If you can have that mentality with Mike Tyson, you can have that mentality with some guy with a little razor that just broke into your door. You get my point.
Yes, it's like you enter a room and if you believe yourself to be the biggest predator in the room, whether or not it's true is irrelevant. As long as you believe it to be true, then it's operational, isn't it?
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's part of the mindset. Yeah, it's preparation, mental preparation.
Very hard to do. You can do it through experience like I had, or you can do it through education. You can. You can do it. I believe now. I used to didn't. I used to say, I'm not going to ever be able to teach my students to defend themselves because they're not working 20 years club doors and seeing violence every fucking night. I used to believe that. But then I had a few of them get attacked, including a 9-year-old kid who sidekicked a predator in the knee and ran for his life. And that predator got arrested and is still in prison. And I'm like, well, maybe there's something to it.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe you can educate people and at least give them the proper building blocks.
That spark. Yeah.
That spark to build that foundation to at least not just freeze and die. Because when you talk about the whole, fight, freeze, or whatever bullshit, the freeze is giving up. Let's be real. Freeze is giving up.
I mean, when we speak about the 4F, which are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, basically, it really depends on the situation, and it depends of your mindset, how desensitized to adrenaline you are. And it's like, right, let's say, imagine, for example, you are with your family, you're driving somewhere, you get out of the car, you got your 2 kids and your wife, and they're all getting out of the car, and all of a sudden, you hear some shootings and you see 2 guys maybe 150 meters ahead shooting with a fucking AK-47. Yes. Your reaction is not going to be a fight reaction. It's going to be a flight reaction. It's going to be, right, kids, get in the car.
It shouldn't be a shutdown reaction. That's my point. In my mind, freeze has always been shut down. I like to have a response. I don't want to shut down.
Yes.
Years ago in the UK, actually, and Hawkeye King gave me a manual to look at this. But years ago, they did a research in the UK, and they were talking about the freeze and flight scenario, fight, freeze, and flight. So what they did was they locked these people into a gymnasium. I don't know if I've ever said. I think I told you the story, but they put a door, they put a chair. And what they did was they recruited 5 college-level basketball players. And I saw the data on all this, the books. 5 college-level basketball players. And then they recruited 5 people who, to their research and their never had any kind of legit basketball experience. Some of them maybe never on that level. And what they did was they put them down in a chair. They turned the gymnasium lights off, and they said, this is all you got to do. When the lights come on, you jump up and look at the door. They're like, okay. So the lights come on. They jump up and look at the door. The door opens, and a pro basketball player throws a basketball at their chest. The college-level basketball players, what do you think they did? They caught the fucking ball. The non-basketball players, what do you think they did? They fucking flailed and got hit in the face with the basketball.
Yeah, they flinched.
That proves that you're flinch. And listen, there are guys that I respect highly that built their careers off of the flinch response. And you know who I'm talking about. And I love those. I love that guy and those guys that do that. And I follow I follow him, like the guy who started that. I follow him since the 80s. But my point is, your flinch response is going to be different than a flinch response of somebody who never had to flinch or respond.
Yes, there's the difference between an actual natural, untrained natural flinch response versus a weaponized flinch response. Yeah. It's like, what's his name? Tony Blauer.
That's what I was talking about. I don't want to talk about. I highly respect him, and me and him have talked, and I mean, I respect his work, but there is a slight flaw in it. Now, I don't want to. I believe he can go all day fucking long. I love Tony, and he is one of my heroes. But there is a slight flaw in his teaching, and the slight flaw is a trained individual will his flinch response will be different than an untrained individual.
Of course,
That's just how it is. It's just how it is.
There's no doubt about that. Like
Yeah.
Tony Blair is definitely one of the pioneers in this world when it comes to that
Love
stuff.
him to death.
Oh man, he was looking into that stuff when everyone was still fucking peeing their pants, man.
Yes, he was looking into that, and also the emotional game. He was already into that.
Yeah.
He's a pioneer for guys like us. But at the same time, there is this, you got to understand that a guy who trains.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in high school, and I dropped out of high school at 17, got my GED, moved into my instructor's dojo, slept on the floor for a year and a half, taught every class that he had. He pretty much gave this 17-year-old boy his school. And I remember one day right before I got out of high school, I was running. I was late for school. Me and school never really corresponded very well.
Me neither.
I knew what I wanted to do by the time I was 12 years old. So it didn't. Yeah,
before that, man, for me even.
Yeah. So I round a corner, and there's this little cute little high school girl, and I'm like 14. She's like I'm like 15. She's 14. And I turn the corner, and I push her, and I was about to stroke her. And I'm just like, now the funny thing is, what's horrible about that story, but it's also cool, she became a student after that.
Okay.
But like, she scared me so much that I'm like, whoa! I pushed the book. She had a book. She had like 5 books in her hand. I pushed the books, and I'm like, oh, darling. I forgot what I told her. I don't know. I used darling. I'm like, I'm so freaking sorry. She goes, no, you scared me too. I was about to kick you in the balls, she said. And I'm like, well, you should have. And she became one of my first students at 14 years old. But my point is, even at that age, my flinch response was different than a normal person's flinch response. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does, bro.
And I think that's important, man. I think that's part of the mental game. I think training and experience. And we can talk technicalities and role reversal, ABC, what the body goes through when we are really approached with a life and death kind of time and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's a whole nother, that's important shit that people neglect. Let's be honest. How many martial art instructors, and I use that loosely, how many martial art instructors talk about this stuff? Listen, the other day I had a well-known YouTube personality. He's an FMA instructor. I think he's even Filipino. And let me tell you, woo, buddy, if you're Filipino teaching FMA, you must be legit. Look at my face. I've had to stab people. I've been stabbed. Come on. But anyway, he mentioned something on one of his posts. He said, if you only have to practice one art for real combat, do BJJ. I nearly shit my pants. And I'm like, what? And my only question was this, and he got so this is when they know they wrong. He got so offended by one question. I asked, and he has a huge following, bigger than me, and I have 15,000 on YouTube, 7,000 on Facebook. I have a okay following. He's even bigger than me because he thinks he's the shit. But he said, are we doing a dick measuring contest? I'm like, and my question was this. Hey guys, how many people here have used Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to save their lives in a real life and death situation with someone trying to kill them? That was my only question. And he attacked me, and I'm like, oh, that speaks volumes, brother. I mean, that speaks the word. You say, so, and everybody, people see through him. But my point is this: if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
If you haven't had the experience, you haven't had the experience. If you haven't talked to people who have the experience, you won't get experience. Because if you don't have the experience, talk to people, spend time with people who have it.
Nothing can buy experience. That's not something that you can buy.
And if I never did those 20 years in the doors, seeing violence every fucking night almost, I would be hanging out with people who did.
Yeah.
I would be hanging out, even my time with my grandfather, who killed more men than I can count on sand. The lessons he told me and the lessons he taught me are so valuable, and they reshaped my life. You know, and because I talked to him and I picked his brain, and luckily he opened up to me. So his sons, my grandfather's sons, were upset with me because he was telling me all this that he didn't tell them, because he knew my path. My path was this. So he's like, well, this is your path. I'm going to tell you shit that I didn't even tell my kids. But you're my grandkid. This is your path. So my point is this. If you don't have the experience, which I don't advise anyone to get it like we have, you know, at least really spend time with people who have it, you know?
Yeah.
And then extrapolate that information. And then
sure.
Investigate and research the mental game.
Put things in the lab, innit? What about one thing I wanted to speak about is, you know, the psychic attack, what I call psychic attack, maybe not out of a science fiction movie, but in a way that you deal with a group of, so let's say you're facing a group of people, okay? And you deal with the leader, you deal with the most dominant person, or what you can call the alpha male. You deal with that person first, clinically, in order to deal with the rest of the people psychologically. And there goes your psychic attack, yeah? So I know there is some talk. I was talking with, I was commenting on a post that Richard Dimitri made earlier on, and you know, I love Richard Dimitri's work. I think he's bang on the money about a lot of things, you know, violence prevention, and it's really good stuff that I'm getting involved with more and more. And he said some research has been done, and there is no such a thing as an alpha male. And I'm like, well, you look at, you know, we've grown up in social circles. Yeah, you look at different males, your role models. You look at your father or your grandfather or other people that were role model or not in your life, and you realize that there are different archetypes, different masculine archetypes out there. You got different types of males out there. You got males that are very dominant. That's what I would call an alpha. A male that's very, very dominant, and then you got males that are less dominant, and then you got males that are more like about submission than dominance. Do you know what I mean? So how do you classify this? I mean, when I was taught by Lee Morrison, it was the alpha, beta, omega concepts, okay, of the different energies that you
listen. When you met Lee and you hung out with Lee, when you walk into a room with Lee, does he not feel in your soul that he's a little bit alpha? I'm not saying he's better than that. I'm not saying there aren't other alphas. You look in the fucking safari, you see nothing but lions. Every one of them can murder you.
Yeah.
This is what people don't understand, is that alpha male doesn't mean physicality. It means emotional fucking transference. That's what alpha means. I can walk into a room with the biggest action stars and fighters and MMA fighters in the world, and I've hung out with these guys. I was sparring partners to a heavyweight who fought Mike Tyson. He didn't do very well, but he got knocked out first round. But he did. He got in there and he fucking did it.
Well, fair play to him to get in the ring with him.
He let a guy that was 100 pounds lighter than him be his sparring partner. Not because that I was a bigger, badder specimen. It was because of emotional transference. That's alpha male.
When you're level,
listen, I'm going to try to keep this very PG, but when you're with a woman, it's not because you're the biggest guy she's ever been with or the most best lover. It's because of the emotional transference. It's because of the way you make her feel emotionally first before physically.
Yeah.
That's what makes you the alpha.
Mm.
There's a movie called The Devil's Advocate. You ever seen it?
Oh, I love this with Al Pacino and Keanu
When Al
Reeves.
Pacino's sitting in the bed with the models everywhere, and he's like, they look at me when I get up to go to the bathroom, and they're like, how did that little guy do this to me?
Mm.
That's because of fucking emotional transference. It's nothing to do with being the biggest, baddest on the block. It's emotional transference because energy is transferable.
Absolutely.
If you don't believe that, you ever talk to someone on the phone, you're talking, they're 600 miles away, and you're talking to them, and all of a sudden you hear them kind of get sad. You're like,
you can sense it.
Yeah, you sense it. You're like, what's wrong with you? Then they break down and they start telling you about all the bad shit going on. How did you know that? You wasn't in front of them. You were 600 miles away.
Everything
energy is transferable.
Yes, it's energy, frequencies, and vibrations.
So when you learn that energy is transferable and you learn how to manipulate the dial, you learn how to go from the loving guy to the I will fucking bite your ear off. I need to survive. That, and then you go back to the loving guy.
You know
that's
what?
art. That's what you just art.
What you just said right now is a practice, and it's something that I teach to my student and that I practice for a long time. Is to
I practice every day
in front of a mirror. So I'm in front of a mirror, and I go from a soft mental and emotional state, which is a nice big smile and stuff, and I go from soft mental emotional state, and then I flick the switch and I go from soft and mental emotional state to hard mental emotional state, and then I flick the switch back to
off the hard. I like that. Yeah.
So how does it look?
Yeah.
It looks like I'm in front of the mirror and I'm just smiling, and boom, and then I go there, and then I go back to my smile. So and that's really learning how to access the aggression on the switch. Cold clinical.
Now this is the double-edged sword. You can't let one overcome the other. For many years, one shadow overtook the other shadow. And I wanted the fucking violence. I wanted the fucking anger. I wanted it. But then I learned you got to be zen. You got to learn to manipulate the KI dial or the KI switch, the killer instinct dial. You got to turn it to 11. Because 10 just ain't fucking good enough. And then you got to turn it back to 1 or 2 to grab your daughter.
That requires control. And the way, I mean, we'll speak about this as well. But the analogy that I like to use for this, is the dragon, the inner dragon. That we all have a dragon inside of us. And we got to learn to unleash it. On the target. So when it's needed, when it's absolutely necessary, you unleash the dragon on the target. And by unleash, it means that it's unleash. You don't let it go free. You let it go. It's like you let it go on the leash, it does the job, and as soon as the job is done, you pull it back in its cave. So that you do not lose control. Basically, you'd never want to lose control of that dragon, because then there are consequences.
So that's the hardest part, to learn how to manipulate that. It's easy to stay docile. It's easy to stay weak. It's also, if you have experience with it, it's easy to stay violent. That's why we got serial killers and domestic violence guys that beat their wives constantly. That's why it's easy to do it. It's very hard to stay middle and manipulate the dial. And that's another part of the mindset. You have to understand what part of if there's a dial, there's notches. You have to understand what notch you want to be at for even given situation.
So you see, when you speak about the dial, it's something that I like, that I was going to speak about, which is called what I call stillness within motion and motion within stillness, which is basically appearing
Bruce Lee there.
Of course. It's appearing to be completely lunatic on the outside, in order to deal with everyone psychologically at the same time as you deal with them physically. But on the inside, you're perfectly still and zen on the inside. So that's like, you know, that's like the wheel in motion. You know, when you spin the wheel of a bicycle, yeah, the wheel spins so fast that it appears motionless, but in fact, it's in motion. So that's really the
You
concept.
remember the 1989 Batman with Michael Keaton?
Oh yeah.
Remember when he hits the fireplace? He goes, "You want to get crazy?" Or what does he say? He goes, "You want to get crazy? Let's get crazy."
Let's get
or whatever he says there. I love how he was so calm, but he did that on purpose because he had the thing in his coat, and that's you have to do it with a potential outcome in mind. This is the problem. There's very easy. I was raised by a mom who beat me and abused me. I was, and so was my wife, and I was raised with all this, but they didn't know how to turn that shit off. When they got angry, they got angry. And at the same time, you've seen people who are so docile that they allow their loved ones to just get mauled by criminals. So you have to learn, and this is the hardest part. This is the enigma about this game, because we're talking about the mental game, but you can't teach it. You got to cultivate it. You got to train it. Or some people born with it. Some people think so. I don't think so. I think we're born and then we're conditioned. So if we're born in rough conditions, we're conditioned. Because if you go to other countries and shit, there are fucking 10-year-olds that will stab you fucking 10 times now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, let's be honest. They're conditioned. They didn't come out the womb going, "I'm going to stab someone for an apple." They're conditioned. So conditioning is the key. If you cannot get the conditioning, you need to get or research someone who has the conditioning.
Yes.
And learn and then incorporate accordingly into your training.
Yes.
People like Lee Morrison, people like me, people like you. I'm not gonna I'm pride enough to say I do it too. You do it. We teach people to condition themselves the best that we know how, so that they don't have to do what we've done. I don't want my students to work club doors for 20 years. I don't want my students to be stabbed repeatedly and have to use their knife on other human beings. But if they listen to what I say and they follow what I learned from the shit, that's the thing. Instructors, this is what you listen, instructors. What you learn is what you teach.
Of course, man.
That's the biggest thing.
It's how you fight how you teach. But you know one thing, one big responsibility as an instructor as well, and I've noticed this, especially for certain people that got a lot of difficulties to access the aggression, and you gotta teach them to access that aggression, yeah. And then I don't know if you've seen this, when you get the first outburst of aggression out of your student, a student that had a lot of difficulties accessing that aggression, and you push that student to that point where that's it, it's coming out, boom, it's bursting out, yeah. But at that point, you need to be really careful. That's where you need to teach him straight away how to keep control of it and not lose control of that aggression. Because when you see people doing like drills, like scenario training or simulations or pressure testing, and they get so much into that aggression that when you blow the whistle or when you go stop, they're still fighting. Do you know what I mean? And that's where you need to kind of teach people to.
Also, the biggest threat too, which I say it because I was it, is when it gets so easy that it's easy. Like violence got so easy to me that I wanted it. It was like Snickers or fucking M&Ms. Cheetos. I wanted it. I fucking wanted it. Every night I went, and I tell everybody now through these experiences that, and this is a Billy Brown phrase, chaos is contagious. And it is. The more you seek it, the more you find it. So you have to find that middle fucking ground, man. And you have to understand it. And I did that, and maybe that was a part of my evolution. Maybe that's what I was intended to experience. Who knows? But I got so good at it that I craved it. Like I never done like heavy drugs other than like, I smoke a little bit, but I never done like heavy drugs. But like if I can imagine it being addicted to like crack or something. It was contagious.
Yeah, what you seek is seeking you as well, isn't it?
And I had 500 people in a dark club, and I'm like, how many can I fucking do tonight?
Yeah, who's gonna get it tonight?
Who's gonna get it tonight? That was my mentality for years, and that's not good. You have to find the middle ground. You have to understand that there's peace and love on this side, and there's bloodshed on this side. Find that middle ground and learn to work that dial that I always speak about between the two.
Now, for that, you see, because it's funny because you touch about things that are going to go down my list because it's all stuff I wanted to speak about, but now it's kind of all fucking messy now. I got to go.
That's my fault. I'm sorry.
But no, it's cool, man. But I tell you what, the thing about all this, is to understand where did the aggression come from? Where did that anger come from? And that's where it all goes to having a look at your past. Okay, if we say that anger is a useful emotion, anger can be a useful emotion because if you're angry, you cannot be afraid. You can't have two emotions at the same time. Or can you? To a certain degree, maybe, but so where does it come from? Where does anger come from? For me personally, is the anger that I have accumulated as a child. And I would even call it rage, bro. Like I have accumulated rage, not even anger. Rage is anger times several millions. Like rage is really like it's hate. Rage is hate. It's when you're so fucking tired of people bullying you and people judging you and people calling you names and mocking you that at that point, you might not realize what you're thinking, but without fearing to say that, bro, when I was growing up, many times I wanted to kill people. Seriously, many times I was like, I actually want to fucking kill that person. Do you know what I mean? I would have never done it because very often because fear of consequences. At that very moment, I mean, not to say that I don't have a moral compass, which I do. I'm a good person. I'm a loving and caring human being. I would never take somebody's life unless I had no other option. But at that point, when I was a kid and I didn't know any better, and I was getting bullied, judged, pushed about, and that anger, the fact that I wasn't defending myself for a long time. And every time I was getting bullied and I wasn't defending myself, I was angry at myself. I was angry at that person. And that anger accumulated. There was so much of it that it turned into rage. Rage turned into hate. And that is dangerous, bro. When you got that, it's like having a bomb inside of you that's waiting to explode, bro. And people die because of this. And one day I had to realize, I had to do that work on myself and realize, right, I have a lot of that anger, and that anger that's been like, it's like an energy that's been compacted, and it became so compact that it became highly explosive. And it's like, it's like nitroglycerin, you just fucking touch it like that, it's just gonna explode. And oh man, for a long time I was a very angry person. I used to punch.
The problem is with guys like us is that when we have the opportunity to actually get out in the laboratory, the concrete laboratory, and test it, we get even better at it. Yeah. So and let me tell you, I didn't learn this till in my 30s, but it becomes a point where when hurting people becomes easy, that's a bad sign.
It's not good. I've never been at that place, to be honest with you. I've never been in a place where I
years. The last 5 years of my career, I was there, and it was bad. I'm writing a book right now, and some of these stories are going in the book, and sometimes I read the rough drafts, and I'm like, fuck, do I even want to put that story in the book? I'm not saying these guys didn't deserve it. But I'm saying that because it got so easy that I went too far is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying? Now, if you take that to the normal student, the normal individual, you don't want that from them, but you do want a middle ground.
No,
You do want them to be at least a little bit comfortable with recognizing they're not going to be. Let me tell you something right now. How long have you been teaching? You got some years behind you.
Well, I was involved with teaching from a young age with my father. You know, I was growing up in Eastern Europe. But how long have I been teaching? I've always been teaching my friends and stuff like that. But how long have I been teaching really like seminars and classes and stuff like that? I'd say since 2016, 2017.
Okay, yeah. The more you do this, the more you're going to this is the truth. I got a few decades. I got a decade or two or a decade and a half above you. The more you do this, the more you're going to realize that the students mean more than yourself. And if you lead them wrong, you lead the flock astray.
Yeah.
You want them to benefit from your experience, but you don't want them to be you. And I had that in the early years. I had guys going, Guru Billy Brown, he's a badass bouncer. I'm going to go be bouncer and I'm going to go beat people up. And I had that early on. And I had to put an end to that shit. And my point is, our only goal as instructors is to transfer the energy and passion we have to them and hope they develop some of the passion for the same thing. That's it. It shouldn't be to make them murderers or badass. I shouldn't say murderers, badass fucking. It should be to teach them to defend themselves though. And it should be to do it in a way where they don't have to get that knowledge the way we did. That's my biggest thing. Because I don't wish that on anyone.
It's true, man. It's true, and that's where when you're leading people as an instructor, you got to be so careful what you say, how you say it, because you're a role model to people now, and a lot of people are like they want to be just like you. They want to do what you did, live your life. You know, you got to be careful, man. The message that you put out there. If you want to save life, you don't want to destroy them, innit? But that's where we go about. You see, so. The difference between anger, rage, and righteous indignation, where now you got a reason, you got a perfectly viable reason to actually be angry. And that's where I speak about, do you fight with hate or do you fight with love? And you know, people said to me, fight with love? What the fuck are you talking
about? That's a hard one to answer, brother. This is the thing. This is what I teach. And I've taught this for a decade or more. This is what I teach. I teach that everybody says you should never be angry. Everybody says, all the Zen masters and the Chuck Norrises, you should never be angry. You should zen, 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 zen. But yet, anger is what makes the 60-year-old grandmother lift the car off of the grandkid. Angry is what makes you know what I'm saying? So anger is a driving force. It's a catalyst to the fucking trigger pull.
Anger can be useful.
The hardest thing though is to learn to reel it in. It's not anger that's scary. Everyone gets angry. My grandmother told me, my grandmother, who was my spiritual leader, the most religious woman that I've ever experienced. She had abilities that flabbergasted me till her death.
Your grandmother?
My grandmother. She was my spiritual. She was the kind of woman that, listen, me and my ex was fighting one night, the mother of my child. We were fighting one night.
Told me that.
3 a.m.
She rang you.
3 a.m. We were fighting. The phone rings. I answer it. I hear her little voice, Billy, just breathe. And I got just breathe on my tattoo now. Just breathe. Just calm down. Y'all don't need to argue. Just talk it out. 3 a.m., 100 miles away from each other. That's the kind of woman this was. And she once told me that if you let the anger compound on you, then it drags you to hell, basically. It just drags you down. But if you let it compound on you, you can't think logically. If you let it compound on you, you can't respond to it in a logical manner. And let's be honest, a lot of times we get angry and we get stressed and we experience all these emotions. And then, like, you've had this too. And then a day or two later, that shit's fixed. And you're like, why did I stress myself so bad for this shit that is not even in existence anymore? That's life. That's violence.
The thing, bro, is to allow yourself to feel that emotion without fueling it, without starting to, when you fuel yourself, you got somebody's talking to you and insulting you, and you keep playing that situation in your head, and it gets you more pissed off and more pissed off because you keep playing that situation in your head. And that's the thing, isn't it? That's the thing that people need to learn to do. Okay, this has just happened. Yes, you felt a reaction, which is normal, like an emotion, anger, useful
human reaction.
That's it. And then whether you choose to feed that emotion or not is up to you. Isn't it? Because the more you feed that reaction, the more that it's not going to be good. The outcome is just not going to be good. You could walk away from a situation.
Exactly. So the bottom line is, how do we transfer this knowledge to our students? What direction do we do? My thing is, like, I saw this recently in a movie, and I don't remember the movie, but it resonated with me. They said a quote. They said, "Ignore the clowns, fight the jackals." I fucking love that. Ignore the clowns, fight the jackals. You have to learn what is a molehill and what is a mountain. That's the biggest thing. What do I need to really lose all my shit over a molehill? Something that is not going to be here tomorrow? Or is this guy trying to stab my daughter or take my life, and I need to? People, I think this is the thing. A, they don't know how to transfer energy. B, they don't understand how to cultivate the drive, the animal. I call it animalistic intention is what I call it. Animalistic. Because most humans do not. And then B, why stress on something that's going to be gone tomorrow? If this is a mountain, it may not be gone tomorrow because we may be gone. And if you cultivate, if you talk about that in combative terms, we may die today. Then you need to learn how to put everything behind you in the back, put it in the box, put it in the closet, and just drive fucking forward. Drive.
It's like Bruce Lee used to say, innit? We got to learn the art of dying.
Yes. My grandfather told me a year before he died, he said, I asked him, I said, are you ready? Are you ready? And he looked out at the yard that he just mowed. He was 92 years old, by the way. World War II hero. He looked at the yard he just mowed, and he looked at me. He goes, if you're going to learn to live, you got to learn to die. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
But that's a lot to take in. We talk about this, and we talk about us being in actually some violence. A lot of people have not. A lot of people think they know. Most men in America think they know how to fight, even though they haven't been in a fight since 5th fucking grade. That's just America. That's the pride that we have. And it may be the same where you're at. I don't know. But it's just so prideful that I've had more than one person go, I already know how to fight. I don't need that business card. But they how do you know how to do something if you never had to do it?
You just don't, man.
People ask me, and this is going to my book, and I'm going to leak this right now, but it's going to my book. People ask me the most scariest time I've ever been in. And they think they're going to talk about my leg being torn, me being stabbed twice, me being cut across the face, me stabbing someone on to save my own ass. They think they're going to hear that, but it's not. The more scariest time I've ever been in was when I was leaving my instructor's house after working out all day. One of my instructors, my main instructor.
Yeah.
And I stop at the stop sign, and I look over and I see a white truck flying in the air, hitting the phone pole. And I take my Jeep, and he's in a huge ditch. And I go down in the ditch, and there's a truck on the side, and a 16-year-old kid is out with his arm 4 foot away from him. And I take my shirt off, and I run to him, and I put pressure on his empty arm socket. And the truck catches on fire, and I call the ambulance, and I'm trying to keep pressure on this kid and call the ambulance and look under the truck, because the first thing they said is anyone else in the truck. And my first thought was, he's got a little 16-year-old little cute girl with him. She's under the truck dying. I'm having to try to – luckily, he was alone. And I am trying my hardest to keep this kid alive. And when they got there, they looped the shit off with yellow tape, and they pull me off, and the fucking guy says everyone leaves except for him, because I was with him for the last 5 minutes of his life. Blood all over me. And I look at him, and I go, did I do enough? What the fuck else? He goes, you did more than we could have done. He goes, unless he had a surgical team, he was dead at impact. And I watched this kid's life just slip away from me. That's the scariest time of my life. It wasn't the fights. It wasn't the – but you know what? I moved forward. I did it. I didn't freeze. I wiped that kid's blood off of me for fucking a week. His name was Cody. Rest in peace, Cody. And but a lot of people wouldn't have done that. And I don't know if that's even a good thing to even talk about in this. It's going in the book, but my point is, I was driven to try to do my best. In life and death situations, real life situations, you got to be driven to do your best and then see what happens. If fucking, in the old days and our ancient ancestors, when saber-tooth tigers attacked them, they did their fucking best. If they lived, they lived.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's
true,
mindset.
That's fucking mindset, man.
You see, in terms of mindset as well, when I was talking about, obviously I'm going back and forth because that's what we're doing today anyway, but you see in the military, one thing that people are taught about mindset is the whole desensitization to things, such as desensitization to the ugliness of violence, desensitization to the sight of blood, desensitization to pain, to adrenaline. You see, for example, that's one thing as well. I've seen a few fucked up things when I was younger, and I was bragging for a long time. I was bragging about being able to be all right with the sight of blood, of extreme blood loss. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've seen my share of blood. Obviously, I'm not a soldier. I've not seen as much as certain people. But I've seen my share of blood in life. And from a young age, I remember when I was a kid that in my neighborhood, one of my, how do you call that, schoolmate, his little sister fell from the window. I think it was the 14th floor. So, and basically, she fell through the window, bro. Huh? Yeah, bro. Her brain was spilling on the fucking on the sidewalk, bro.
Yeah, I've seen that shit.
Hey, and imagine as a kid, I don't know how old I must have been like 10 years old when I've seen that. Yeah. But it was a bit of a shock, but it's almost like, first of all, because me, the way that I was as a kid, like there was that violent upbringing, obviously, and I was for a long time I've been drawing bloody stuff. Do you know what I mean? To a point that even the psychotherapist, because I've had the 10 years psychotherapy where because I had problems at school, ADHD, do you know what I mean? Fucking on the mild spectrum of autism, didn't want to learn. I was the black sheep of the family, the black sheep of the class. And at some point I was drawing all I was doing was drawing instead of learning at school, and I was drawing guns, rifles, knives, Dragon Ball Z, and bloody stuff, man. And teachers were getting scared. Do you know what I mean? Do you remember that website, rotten.com?
Oh yeah.
Fucking, I was on it all the time before, and it was just kind of that how to say, an addiction, almost a rush that I was getting by seeing people's head chopped up or people's hands chopped up, or it was just madness. But eventually, at some point, I realized that it's so unhealthy. It's one.
Well, let me say this real quick. That was part of your. Right now, your mission is to educate people to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Your mission, and right now you're getting emotional, just like I did. So that right there shows you're a good guy. That was part of the education process for you.
Of course.
I did the same shit. And I have seen more bloodshed and death and knives, and I've had it fucking done to me even. And I've done it to others because I had to do that. But it's part of the education process. And what I realized is all of that shit shaped us, but how do we use that? This is the fucking $5 million question. How do we use that to shape our students?
Yeah.
That's the question.
You see, for example, when I teach my knife program, my counter weapon tactics program, yeah, when I put the PowerPoint presentation, for example, and we speak about the different types of blades, different type of length, either puncture tools, slashing tools, puncture and slashing tools, and then we go on to the different damage that can be sustained with different types of blades, and so I show actual pictures, very, very ugly pictures to look at, but I show pictures of people that got slashed, so big fucking wide opening, big cuts, yeah.
This bitch open up to like here.
Yeah.
A little bitty scar right now, but it opened up to here. I was so shocked. I remember looking at and in the middle of the meat, I saw little lights.
The bone, this cartilage, tendon. It's ugly as fuck, man. But the thing is, it's necessary as a wake-up call. I think it's very important for people to see that, because you're not gonna try stupid shit when you know what to expect. It's like Paul Vunak with the piece of meat hanging, and we used to do that with my father as well when I was younger.
That place is 95.
Yeah. How do you actually know what you're facing? You got to desensitize yourself to a certain degree. You have to see the blood. You have to see the meat, the opened meat. You have to know the difference between a stab wound, a puncture wound, and a slash wound. And that's where it all comes from. But when I was younger, it's kind of, I almost had a pride. Like, I was proud that I could see the sight of blood. You know what I mean? While other people might go and...
Me too, brother. I get it. And that's good. It's good for us.
Yeah,
How can we make it good for the students is the question.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you something. My entire existence, other than for my wife and our future, hopefully, kid, I live for the students. I live for the people. That's it. That's it. That's my only existence. I'm addicted to teaching.
Yeah.
So how do I take all this accumulation of violence and shit and blood and piss and educate and give them something they can, use and learn from? And that's the hardest part. So if you talk about shit to a student on a very fundamental level, you have to talk about the role reversal. You have to talk about what people miss is the chemical imbalances we get once we're hit with violence. The tunnel vision, the audio exclusion.
Yeah, we're going to speak about this. Yeah,
you have to talk about all this, and nobody does. Nobody. There's a few. The Lee Morrisons, the Jeff Thompsons,
Rory Miller.
There's a very few, but you see everybody teaching to fucking kick ass and do cool shit. But nobody talks about the shit that's actually going to hinder their ability to do all of the cool shit.
Yeah. But for that it's people needing to understand the effects of adrenaline, the physiological changes that do, that happens when you're actually faced with that adrenaline. And as you said, you got tunnel vision, hyperventilation, decrease of fine motor skills, like shaky limbs, time distortion, auditory exclusion, voice quiver, dry mouth, all that
Audio
shit.
exclusion. People don't even understand your hearing shuts down. Even.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
And the biggest thing is the cognitive shift, where the blood rushes away from the neocortex to the limbic systems. Where that's when you go reptilian. That's when you lose. That's when you lose your cognitive function, is when you lose your motor functions, a degree,
yeah.
to a certain degree anyway, depending
No,
on how desensitized to adrenaline. And that's all about the heart rate management, isn't it?
heart rate management. Yeah.
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 And so the heart rate management is really to retain some degree of cognitive function in order to retain some degree of motor functions.
And in the U.S., it's harder for us here than it is for y'all. In the U.S., nobody talks about vocabulary and voice inflection. And motherfucker, I'm going to fucking kill you. Nobody said. In the UK, you can get away with shit like that. Like you can cuss. You can. Here, we would be very shunned upon if we were putting out all our videos cussing. But they don't understand that all of that voice inflection and the vocabulary is part of real world combat. Because voice inflection and vocabulary can shut a person down.
Yeah, some people can.
I watched the movie the other night. It was the funniest thing. Like, there was this one guy who was so docile the entire movie. He was an older guy with a beard, gray beard, so docile. And finally, the youngster that he was, I think he was a manager or something in the movie, but the kid just starts cussing him. And the guy looks at him and goes, I will fucking bite off your head. And I'm like, whoa, he just said, that's reality. That's the shit that shuts human beings down.
That's a psychic attack in order to make the person capitulate.
But that's part of the fight.
But that's what
in America we take. You never go to a traditional martial arts school and see that. And even in my videos, I've had to tone it down for the audience.
Do you know what? That is something we call aggression therapy. Something that Jeff Thompson. You can see Jeff Thompson doing that with his students. I do that as well. Training to getting desensitized to have someone in your face insulting you and just kind of pushing you.
Not just that, because you don't. I know you understand, but they may not understand that words hurt. They can.
Oh yeah.
If you project them properly, they can hurt. They can shut a person down or pause a person enough for you to, put in a blow or whatever you need to do. But they can manipulate the outcome of the engagement. And that's something too, and that's part of what I call the mental game. Because we don't talk like that throughout our daily life. I don't go around talking, hey, motherfucker, but in reality.
It should be part of combative training. See, you get a lot of people, when you put videos of you teaching and I know I'm trying now purely from from a marketing point of view, I'm trying to swear a bit less now, but there is some point in training where it's necessary. It's part of contemporary.
They gotta at least know what's going to be there, and they got to know the words. What's that old saying? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words have never hurt me. In reality, words can hurt you.
Of course.
But in physicality, they cannot. So if you let them hurt you, you're hurting them, hurt you on an emotional level. You have to compound the emotional with the physical. And it comes back to the mental game of being first. It comes back to the mental game of preemption. It comes back to all this shit we could talk about on a tactical level. But words can, in fact, shut a person down or at least pause them to a point where they get hurt. We don't want to respond to that shit. When that shit happens to me, the last few years of my career, When that shit was coming at me, I started just laughing. That would scare the shit out of them. I mean, they would be spewing this shit, and I'd be like the Joker going. I turn that shit on and turn it off like that. You know, and they would be like, this guy doesn't care what we're calling him. We're talking about his mama. We're talking about his wife. And because it doesn't matter to me, what matters to me, you come in this circle.
Yeah.
And through the years, my circle has definitely decreased. But you come in this circle, you step one foot in this circle, you're getting drops. My mama steps in it, she's getting dropped. Everybody knows about the circle. I don't care who you are. You stay outside of that circle, you're okay. Your little words will hurt me. You know what I mean? And that's part of the mental game too, because this is the thing. You have to be confident. You have to become confident in the training and in the research and discovery of yourself. Yep. And when you talk about the mental game, it's all about discovery of yourself. Because me and you and all the other great instructors, Jeff Thompson, Lee Mark, you can get the best, greatest instructors on earth in a gymnasium, and you still can't fucking teach the mental game. They have to discover it. The mental game is a discovery process.
It can be described, but it can't be taught. Yeah.
It can be described, but you can't. Yeah, I can't distill it in you like a program. Like I teach you this, now you have it. Yeah. I wish. You know, I wish. I have a student who was a longtime student of mine. He's secondary black belt under me, full instructor in a lot of different of my systems. Trained with me 15 years. Stocky young black kid. And I say black kid because he looks like fucking who's that actor? Fuck. He's a major actor. I mean, not a major, but he does a lot of great shape.
Michael J. White.
Yes. And that's how this kid is. He will lift on Facebook. Yes. So he looks the part. And the first, I hired him at my club. In the first big altercation, and I'm not gonna lie, it was 8-man. It was 8-man against 4 of us, but we did good. But the first time, he froze like a stone, didn't move, and he's so capable. Now later it got easy to him, but that first time, froze like a stone. And we're over there, and I'm looking at him like, "Fuck, help! Fucking help us!" And he froze. So
man, it happened to me, bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It happened. I'm sure it happened. I don't remember because it was so long ago, but it happened to me too. I watched a lot of the first altercations go. I didn't freeze, but I watched. I'm like, what do I do? They're handling it. Like, you gotta understand though, the first week I worked, I saw a husband get shot with a shotgun.
Oh, yeah, you told me, man.
Wife blew, yeah. So what do you do with that? You can't do shit. So, but my point is, he froze. The biggest, baddest dudes will freeze because they don't understand that mental aspect of it. You can be as athletic as you want. You can be as talented as you want.
So one thing you were saying, and something I really agree with, is what's happening when you're basically faced with that threat. Initially, what's happening is that if you're surprised, you're gonna have that fear reaction that causes you to inhale really forcefully, like, you know what I mean? And very often people are stuck. They're not exhaling. And by not exhaling, that's where the heart rate accelerates, and that's where the freeze happens. Yeah. And the best way to break out of this is to exhale forcefully as you attack, as you fucking assault. So action is the only way out of the freeze effect, man.
Action is the breath of fresh air. That's in my book. Action is the breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
If you move forward, when a car stalls on the interstate, let's say your car needs an oil change, you got an old ass beater. When it stalls, you hit the gas, usually it will go because you pump the gas through the system. That's the human body. You got to pump gas through the system. And by pumping gas through the system, you have to have a determined forward motionary thought process to just go forward.
Yeah.
When you do that, a lot of guys, and let me tell you something, we are guppies. This isn't new knowledge. My grandfather told me this shit, and he killed more men than I can count. He used to tell me, he used to sit me down, we'd be on a swing. I said, did you ever run out of bullets? He said, no. I'm like, well, why? He goes, because our friends would die in front of us and we would grab their rifles and just go forward. And I'm like, what the fuck? He said, he would say, we would just grab, he goes, you don't stop and mourn. He goes, they give you, he goes, their death is a memorial to you. Because they're like, take my rifle. Keep going forward. Think about that shit. That's reality.
Yeah.
If you take that down to what we do, because there'll never be another generation like that. There's a dude, I wish you could see it. There's a raccoon this fucking big just right here. But anyway, Florida, welcome to Florida.
I like raccoons.
If there was an alligator, I would turn this motherfucker next time. But he's huge. Anyway, yeah, he said you just grab the weapon and keep moving forward. He goes, you think about them later when you're safe, after you dispatch the bad guys. He used to tell me. And he would be doing this on a swing, eating pralines. You know what pralines are?
No.
No, it's like a Louisiana Cajun candy. You know what pecans are? Pecans? It's like a nut that you crack. I'm Cajun. It's like a nut, okay? You crack, and we grew them in our yard. So we would get a bunch of them out of the trees and on the ground, and he would crack the pecans, and we would be eating them, and he'd be like, yeah, he goes, when they die, you just grab their weapon. He goes, that's your goodbye to them. Like, you're going to use their weapon.
Yeah.
The bad guy. And if you think about that, that's fucking crazy, first off. That's mindset. You use what you got to dispatch the bad guy. Are you about to go pee? What were you doing right now?
No, bro, I'm not going to pee. No. Want to see? No, I'm just grabbing some bananas out of the kitchen, man.
Bananas, okay.
Bro, so you see, for example, there are some drills, there are some things that you can actually teach to your student in order to learn to access aggression. And one way is some sort of meditation. So basically you get your students to lie down on their back, yeah, and you get them to breathe a certain way in order to lower the heart rate and kind of put them in some sort of trance state, yeah. Get them brain waves going. And at some point you get them to imagine a very difficult scenario to visualize. The scenario where you're a family man, you're coming home from work as you do every single day, and as you get in, the door is slightly open. You ask yourself why. You're getting in there. You're calling for your family, but there is no sound. And blah, 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 blah. You kind of construct that scenario to them, giving them as much details as possible, yeah? Right down to how it feels, like how the handrail of the stairs leading up to, how it feels, everything, yeah? And at the end, you end up telling them, right, you just arrive in your room and now there is like a 6'1" dude on the top of your loved one with a fucking kitchen knife. Do you know what I mean? And how do you deal with that situation? And you get them to imagine that and to really look for that, try to locate that feeling within themselves. And once you locate that feeling, it's kind of locking on it. And just imagine it's a ball of energy where you just take that ball of energy and it's there and you make a copy of it. Yes. A mental and emotional copy of it so that you can access it at will whenever you need. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the same analogy of the dragon. But basically, I'm concerned about how do we teach that stuff to people that are afraid, to people that do not have that mindset. And these are the people that need it the most.
I got a good answer for you on that. And it's what I have done for the last 20 years probably. But here you go. Every day that we live, it's a chance for us to cultivate the killer instinct dial or the KI switch.
Yeah.
When we're driving, I don't know, y'all don't drive much where you're at, I don't think y'all, right?
Not yet, but soon.
Yes, yeah. But when we're driving, we get cut off. Like somebody driving in Florida is fucking people. But we get cut off. This is what you do. You grab the steering wheel and you just barbarically and venomous just let out a rant for 5 seconds. The most fucking just, I can't even put it on here because I know we cuss on your podcast, but I'm not going to even put it on here, the shit you would say. And then after 5 seconds, you go back to singing Elvis. I mean, you just go. That alone is learning and teaching you to adjust the KI dial.
That's the same concept of going from soft mental emotional state to hard mental emotional state.
I do it with everything throughout the day. And my wife had to learn about this because she would freak out at first and go, "What is wrong? Why are you?" I'm like, no, it's cool. She's like, "You just dropped a piece of ice out of the freezer." Like I dropped a piece, I'm going, "Fuck, I wanted that in my fucking cup. I got more ice. Baby, you want a drink?" She didn't understand what I was doing. Anytime you feel discord, use it for a second, up to 5. Don't go other than 5 because if you go other than 5, you become a psychopath. Go up to 5 seconds, use it, feel it, invoke it, fucking let the body adjust to it, and then wash it away like water, and then think of something happy. That
hardwiring yourself.
That is learning to manipulate the KI dial. And we get it all through life. If you work for the man, your bosses are gonna fucking piss you off. If you drive in traffic, the traffic's gonna piss you off. The bills are gonna piss you off. Something's gonna piss everybody off every day. Bottom line, use it for just a second. Use it. You don't need to be vocal. I don't do it vocally everywhere because if I did, I'd probably be arrested. But I will train it like if something happens, let's say, I don't know. Let's say I'm at a restaurant and somebody brings me the entirely wrong dish. I will fucking go, "This looks great. Thank you." Just that alone will help you understand the manipulation of the mental aspect of the KI switch. That's I'm not a psychologist. I don't know if I could tell you more than that, but I will say that you can cultivate it. Because there's never a moment. My wife is struggling with it because she has the first part. She takes longer to turn it back to neutral. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We're working on that. She's younger than me. I mean, fuck, she's 15 years younger than me. So she's working on that. But she has the part where she can flip it up to fucking 11, like my instructor said, but she only flips it down to 6. Where I can flip it up to 11 and flip it down to 2.
0, yeah.
Tried it, or 1 even. Not 0. I'm always like ready to bite something. But you get what I'm saying? So she's still working on that. And it's an endless, like I'll look at her, I go, and this is what I tell her. I go, molehills or mountains? I'll look at her and she'll go, molehills or mountains? Do I need to make a molehill into a mountain? Or is this a mountain? Or should I just consider? And she'll go, it's a molehill. It's fine. Molehills or mountains?
It's interesting you speak about that, because so there was my ex-partner Abigail, who I was with for 5 years. I trained her for a good while. I was training her, and she, mind you, she's never done any fighting whatsoever. Nothing, zero. Yeah, before she actually met me. And at some point, after a bit of training, several months of training, we did a video. I'll post that video later on, bro, because I was really, really proud of her. She was one of these people that it was very, very difficult for her to access the aggression. But I told her, how to access that aggression on the Switch. And the video that we filmed, I mean, I was genuinely impressed, bro. I really was genuinely impressed, and I'll post the video later on. You'll see what I mean. For a woman that's never done any fighting before, the work that we did that day, I was like, "Fuck!" I could see, I felt it. I could really feel
Well,
that.
I mean, let's be honest. With most of our students, don't know. Let me tell you, man. I've trained students who had it in them so much where I didn't even know they had them until they needed to have it, and then I'm like, "Fuck, where'd that come from?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The human nature is we know more about aliens than we do the human nature. You know what I mean? I mean, let's be real. I mean, it's the human nature is the biggest fucking enigma, and
It's
we don't know what we're capable of. You hear the stories of the 80-year-olds lifting cars off of their brains.
I believe I've always believed in supernatural abilities, man.
So we don't know what we're capable of because we block that shit out. You know, and we don't tap into it. When you hear the stories of like my grandfather storming all them beaches and killing all them people and not getting shot at, like he got hurt a few times, but he kept going. 3.5 years in the sand. And like I wouldn't want to fucking do that right now. That's a different breed of people. Are they supernatural? No, probably not. But they tapped into a thing that said, this is what we got to do. We got to fucking do it now. And that's survival. When we have to defend our lives or defend the innocence of our loved ones, we don't want to do it, but we got to.
Yeah.
That's survival. My wife had a wasp, and she's a highly allergic. Like you would need to hit her with an EpiPen, it would kill her. And I just fucking grabbed that motherfucker because I had to do it. I didn't want to get stung, but I had to do it. And actually, I didn't even kill it. I grabbed it and it didn't even sting me, and I let him fly. So we do shit not because we love doing it. We do it because we have to. And this is the mental game.
And that's where it goes back to fighting to preserve life and fighting for your love. And you know, when people say, "Oh, I'm a lover, not a fighter," I like that expression, but in some ways it doesn't make sense, because if you're a lover,
at all, because if you love, you're going to be able to fight. Exactly. A soft man is not a good man.
Yeah.
If you love hard, you're going to be able to fight hard.
That's Jordan Peterson, man. Yeah. What kind of love do you have if you're not ready to fight for it, man?
That's it, man.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to speak about, an interesting concept that comes from Richard Grannon. Have you heard of Richard Grannon?
I'm not sure.
So Richard Grannon in the UK, who he's a psychologist, but he also dwelled in self-defense, self-protections back in the 80s, 90s, and he speaks about something called the supra state. The supra state, the alter ego of creating this superhero persona inside yourself that you can transform into at any given moment if you needed to face extreme level of violence. So not who you are every single day, but who you are ready to be at that moment in order to deal with the situation at hand.
Yes.
It's a bit like what's his name? Goggins, David Goggins.
Oh yeah.
where when he says, "When I become Goggin, that's it. No, nothing is impossible, and I will just fight until the end." It's like I'm a different
I
person.
say this thing where I say, okay, listen, bad guys, predators, they want three things: body, money, or life. Not always in that three.
Yeah,
Not always in that
properties,
order.
body, or life. Yeah.
Body, finances, or life. And
Yep.
it's not always in that order. It's sometimes all
Sometimes
three.
it's all three of them. Look at what's happening in South Africa.
Yes. So the biggest thing is they perceive themselves as the predator hunting. When you talk about role reversal, you're the fucking predator. They're the prey. They don't understand it yet, but they're going to figure it out. You have to flip that script and make everyone in the building, everyone in the street know that you're the predator.
Yeah.
And that's the key, man. That's why role reversal is so important, even for people who can't do it. There have been women, and I've done the research, who were about to get raped and maybe worse, flip the script and not necessarily hurt the people, but run them off because they became the predator, at least the momentary. Listen, military impression here. I was raised by military men. I mean, you may know this too. Momentary impression of superior firepower.
Yeah.
That's the golden rule.
Yeah.
You got violence of action, and you got momentary impression of superior firepower. If you can make them at least believe that you are the one with superior strength, skill, and tactics, they will run most of the time.
You see the way that this role reversal, predator prey reversal, the best way to make it work is when you go from one extreme to the next. So you see, for example, it's like, do you know what's her name? Melissa Salt.
Yes.
Dr. Ruthless. She's one of the pioneer in the world of. She's probably the pioneer in the world of combatives for women.
At least
Oh, mate, she's done amazing work, and for her size, the way that she fights. But I like the way when she says, use partial compliancy, partial submission, because you're looking for a window of opportunity to blitz through the target. But because there is a disparity in strength, basically, if you're a woman, if you're a 50-kilo woman, you try to play a 100-kilo man at his own game, you can't. It's not possible. But it's like you're gonna kind of lower everything, and you're gonna use that partial compliancy. And it's like from stillness, boom, like big explosion. It's like from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour. You know what I mean? Where there's acceleration. It's like the best way I could describe this is one day I had that situation in London.
Listen, freeze. I gotta pee real quick. And you talk while I pee. Give the fans something. Okay, I'll be super quick. Hold on.
Go on, man. A little page of advertising, folks.
Coming back.
You're back.
Back.
He's back.
When I just looked at my backyard and the guy just cut all the grass. There were squirrels, raccoons. Only thing I didn't see was the damn alligators.
So
There's cranes this big.
tell you
Florida,
what,
bro. Florida.
Before I forget, so some situation I've been in back in that must have been back 2010, couple of years after I moved to the UK. I was in London, and some drunk, I don't know if he was drunk or under drug, but he was definitely under the influence of something, yeah. And he was just walking and giving mouth to everyone inside the tram. It was the tram, or under, they call it overground in London, overground or underground, something like that. Anyway, and it was just being aggressive to everyone, yeah. And people didn't stood up to him, yeah. And at some point he came to me and started to chat shit to me, and I was just silent, but I was looking at him. Do you know what I mean? And I went from that really, really silent person. I thought if I ignored him, he was just going to move on, because that's what other people did. And he eventually did move on, yeah? But I don't know. He must have kind of spotted that. I'm going to have something with that dude, yeah? And he was fucking giving me mouth. And in my head, you know, I didn't want to be aggressive to him. Yeah, I was silent. I was trying to ignore him, but in my head, I was ready. I was, fuck, man. If you cross that line, I'm ready for you. Yeah. And at some point, I had to go from one extreme to the next. But that's what happened. Most people didn't even see what happened, because they see me go from very, very, very quiet to boom, and it just kind of, it was over really, really fucking fast, bro. But that was the thing. I went from almost this compliancy of, I'm not interested, I'm ignoring you, I don't want that problem, this and that. And when he stepped that line, when he stepped across that line, I had to fucking do something. So it was that reversal, that role reversal. You know, that's the best way that
One of the most important things.
Mm.
Learning when to pull trigger. Paul Vunak used to always say, he said, if you always have a 45 in your jacket or on your leg, or on your waist, he goes, you're going to walk through life with a different feeling. And what he meant by that was, we're the 45. Yeah. We just have to learn when to pull trigger.
Yeah.
As we grow in this and mature in this, we pull trigger. I used to pull trigger too quickly. And then I went through a phase where I didn't stop pulling trigger and even fucking reload it, which I shouldn't have done. And now I know without a doubt, I'm not afraid of any man on earth at this point. And it's not because I'm the baddest ass mofo. It's just because I understand violence and I understand preemption. And I know that if you may be Conor McGregor or Mike Tyson, or
don't give him the opportunity to show you what he knows.
Thumb your eyes and elbow you repeatedly. I don't care who you are. You're going to fall like the hundreds of them other ones did. And I'm going to go away and go, fuck. Oh, I got lucky. You get what I'm saying? That's just the way of the nature of things. If you look at the wild, if you look at tigers hunting, they don't wait for the prey to attack them. They attack.
Yeah.
Preemption.
There's no hesitation.
There's no hesitation.
And you spot that window of opportunity, yeah.
And some of these animals that these cats bring down, I'm using cats as a loose, bears, grizzlies, whatever. But these animals, they never wait. Some of them could fight hard. Some of them do. Don't get me wrong. I've seen cats. You saw them videos where the cats bit slipe the alligator. Have you seen
it? yeah, bro. I've seen that. That's funny as fuck, man.
Cracks me up. I'm not saying they can't fight. What I'm saying is, if that cat never saw that gator and that gator just went, it would be done with it.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? That's reality, and that's what I'm trying to instill in my students. You don't have to be the baddest man on the block, but you do have to understand violence and this is my term. I've seen other instructors use it, but it's my term. You have to become a student of violence. A student of violence. A true student of violence.
Yeah.
and you have to understand what to expect and when to expect it and how to expect it and what your body's going to throw to when it's going on. If you do that, half the battle's over. The rest of it is skill sets.
Yeah.
The rest of it is technical skill sets. What are you going to do? Are you going to box?
Yeah.
Or you go box, or you go grapple? What's your skill set? Are you going to, well, let's be honest. When you talk about arts, we can put them all in boxes. If you box, it's fine, but everybody punches. We grew up seeing kids in the playground punching each other in the face, and nothing stopped till the teacher stopped it. I was one of those kids.
Yeah.
Then you move into grappling. Well, that's fine, but let's be honest. I mean, statistically, we're going to be attacked with weapons, or we're going to be attacked with multiple people, and you're rolling around on concrete on your back, horizontal, getting gang banged, literally gang banged. So that may not be the most conducive thing either. The only thing that tends to work 99.9% of the time is blunt force trauma and preemption.
Yeah.
And that's just the facts of it.
Hit first.
Now, then you go into the legalities of it, because I know in the UK it's different. I saw a video of yours. You was talking about if a person breaks into your house with a knife, what are you going to do? You go, you may have to go to the courts, and you're right. Fuck the courts. I'd rather go to the courts.
You're going to be worried. That, you see, that's one thing where a lot of martial arts instructor will disagree with me and you, but I know one thing is, if somebody breaks in your house at 3 o'clock in the morning, the last thing on your mind will be to preserve him, or to stay within the legal realms of the law. And a lot of people, I'll tell you,
I keep my wife alive because of this home invasion. At least she can keep ramen noodles in my commissary.
That shit will get people killed. At that point, when you have to fight that guy off, if you start worrying about the law, worrying about that shit, you die.
And I try to tell people this all the time. Look, when I do these combative seminars that are strictly, we talk like me and you were talking.
Yeah.
You just want the dirty truth. I tell them right away, I'm not the guy to come through for legalities. I'm not the guy to come through for moralities. I'm the guy that's going to teach you to fucking get it done. And all that other shit you're going to have to learn on your own. I'm going to teach you to get it fucking done. Yeah. And that's what I'm most concerned with. I'll handle the courts later. There are lawyers. O.J. Simpson, come on. Come on. Nobody on earth believes that he's innocent, but he got off scot-free because he had a good lawyer. So if the glove don't fit, we must acquit. But if somebody breaks into my house, you're dying. I mean, and if you don't die, you're going to be in grave condition, and that's just the way it is. And in the U.S., we can probably get away with that a little more than where you're at. But the point is this: look,
do you know what really baffles me is that you got situations in this country where somebody breaks in somebody's house in the middle of the night, ends up getting his nose and his jaw or his legs broken, which is fucking fair play. What the fuck are you doing in somebody else's house at 3 o'clock in the morning, and still manage to sue that guy for bodily harm, and that guy goes to jail or has to pay a fine because of that? It's like, dude, what world do we live in, man?
Scary, man. And whenever I hear the arguments here where we don't need guns to protect ourselves, look at the UK, they have no guns. And I'm just like, listen, man, you think there's not you look at the UK history, there's more violence there than there is. So this is my only point with that. It doesn't matter where you live. Because violence is violence. Shitty people are shitty people.
I know that a lot of people, are against the gun, the gun laws and stuff like that. I think that's fucking great that people are allowed to carry guns. You know what I mean? Well, it's sad that now, in many countries, they actually took that right away from us. I don't think that a gun is a weapon. It's an instrument. It's a tool. Do you know what I mean? It's a tool. And if you have a good moral compass and you understand safety rules, how to use your firearm and how to be safe with it, and you got a good moral compass, then I don't think that things can go wrong. Do you know what I mean?
It goes further than that, though. This is where it goes, brother. Listen. Laws don't stop bad people from doing what they do.
Exactly. So they're just making life more difficult for people.
For the legal people. Yeah. The people who abide by laws. That's all they're doing. They're allowing us to not. They're disabling us from defending ourselves.
But that's it, because criminals don't care. They will carry weapons regardless.
I know places in the United States where I could buy a hand grenade right now. Yeah. That's not dope. 12th Avenue, Nashville, Tennessee. I could buy a hand grenade or a machine gun right now. I know for a fact, and I'm not going to tell you why I know it, but I know for a fact. My point is, all laws are going to do is make the bad guys military helicopter. Coming for me. All laws are going to do is make the bad guys stock up and make the good guys not able to defend themselves.
Yeah. Not only that, after there is the whole thing about the government wanting full control over the population. So they want their forces to be armed, but they don't want you to be armed because they don't want you to be able to rebel against them.
We have the Constitution, the right to bear arms. What do y'all have that's similar to that?
I fucking love it. The Second Amendment, bro. That shit
y'all have
is
that
necessary.
Do y'all have that too? Y'all don't have that.
No,
we all have that similar.
That right has been taken away from us, man, especially in the UK. You got no right, nothing that even resemble a weapon by design is an offensive weapon, they call it. If you're caught with anything like that, you'll get in trouble, man. Do you know what I mean?
How do you martial artists and combative guys survive there? Let me ask you this. Are there really successful martial arts schools there?
In the UK?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I know I have a lot of good friends there. Well, in the area, Rick Young, he's in Scotland.
Yeah, Rick Young in Scotland. Yeah. He's good.
Good guy of mine. I mean, I not a good friend, but he's definitely a hero of mine. I love the guy to death, and we do talk.
There is a few very good people in the UK. Like there is Phil Norman. You know Phil Norman?
I love Phil.
Yeah, Phil Norman is fucking amazing, man. And Bob Breen, Phil Norman,
fucking a legend.
Some amazing people.
But how do you guys run the business there if you can't really do it? I don't understand. Like, are you allowed to teach self-defense? I mean,
of course, yeah.
You just can't teach it with a weapon.
We can't, bro. It's the same thing. Of course, they are, and that's an argument that I've been in with a lot of people when I post videos of my machete training or my knife training, when I'm demoing offensive blade tactics on the dummy or on a person with a training blade. And I get people going, no, you fucking hell, you can't show this, you can't teach that. That's we got a big knife problem in the UK, and you can't teach this, you can't teach that. And I'm like, dude, are you gonna go to kendo schools? Are you gonna go to kendo schools now and tell them just drop that fucking kendo because it's teaching people how to use a katana sword? Do you know what I mean? It's like, dude, it's
funny. They said we have a big knife problem, but they don't want to teach people how to defend against the knife problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. Crazy.
Bro, at the end of the day, I think that, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you need to know a bit of everything. You need to dive deep into everything. Armed combatives and unarmed combatives. And even, bro, even firearms. I mean, look, in this country, the best thing we can train with are, this sort of air guns. You know what I mean? Yeah. Then you got. I got a nice collection of it as well. Do you know what I mean? But it's all stuff you can just work on the dry fire drills, manipulations, and all that stuff. That's the best you can do. Or you can go and do some paintballing or some airsofting.
It comes down to this. No matter where you're at, especially where you guys are at, but learn to finish quick. Learn to fucking finish quick. That's the key. because the longer the fight lasts, the more chances of you ending up in the hospital, in the morgue, or in handcuffs. That's bottom line. Paul Boonag used to say, he used to talk about why he doesn't drink anymore. He used to say, because I'm contagious, alcohol, I'm allergic to alcohol because I drink and then I always break out in cuffs. He used to say. And that's true, because the longer the fight goes, the worse injuries, and all this shit's going in my book, and I've wrote articles on it you can find online, but the worst injuries I've had in real altercations were because I took too fucking long to finish.
That's what Tommy Carruthers used to say to me. He used to say to me, if you can't finish it in less than 3 moves, if it takes you more than 3 moves to finish a fight, then you need to go home and rethink it all, man.
I don't know about moves, but my thing is 3 seconds. 3 to 6 seconds of controlled insanity.
That's what Jeff Thompson used to say, the 3-second fighter.
3-second fighter. And every other time I've been hurt. I mean, because not that I didn't win, but did I win? I'm the one injured. I maybe stopped you, knocked you out, broke your orbital bone or whatever, but I'm the one hurt. You know what I mean? Like, the longest the fight takes, not only that, it becomes a moral issue. This is in the book too. I'm releasing a lot of shit right now. The longer the fight takes, the more damage I may have to do to the person. That makes it less moral.
Yeah.
I may have to bite a nose or thumb an eye or bite an ear, and I've done all those fucking things. I may have to do that because I couldn't stop it in those 3 seconds where just blood force drama knocked you out or stalled you where I could run. So that's a different thought. The quicker you do it, the less damage you may have to do, or the less damage is done to you.
It's really learning to be clinical.
Clinical. And surgical and barbaric.
Surgical and clinical, yeah.
Yeah.
What about, so we spoke about mindset, we spoke about, where it comes from, how to develop it, the different drills that people can do in order to cultivate that mindset. And we kind of briefly touched on what I'd like to speak about a bit more now, which is, what if you lose control, and how not to lose control, how to master the aggression and really being able to switch it on and switch it off. And, the consequences of, if you lose control, there's so many consequences. You could die, you could kill, you could end up in jail, you could end up paralyzed for the rest of your life. How do you, this is why, for example, you see the way that we train when we do pressure testing, we pre-fatigue the trainee. So we get him to do some sprint there, sprint back, some static running, punching, burpees until he's breathing really hard, he or she. Then spin him 10 times to disorientate him, and then we set like 2 padded assailant loose on him and see how he's dealing with them. At the end, he's completely fucked, totally fucked, mentally, physically. And at that point, at the end, what we get the student to do, we get the student to tell to spell his name, his family name, his mother's maiden name, and his mother's maiden name backwards, in order for the blood to go back from the limbic system back to the neocortex, prefrontal lobe. So that's basically to have that cognitive shift again, to get back to a cognitive state, basically. I think that's a good way to kind of teach people.
I think it's awesome. And I do that too. I do some of that too.
Yeah.
I will say this from my experience. I was the guy that spent a couple of years losing control. I will say that now, and I'm very open. It's in the book. And the reason why was because I had a how am I going to say this? I had a emotional trauma happen, and I took it. I tried to cope by the job.
Yeah.
It was a great way to cope. It was like, oh man, I can take out all my frustrations and pain and agony and suffering on these assholes. And that lasted for about a year. where I lost track of moral ethics and etc. And I regret so much of that now because there was many, and I always tell this to people, a lot of these guys deserved it. It just, they didn't deserve it as much as they got it. What I'm saying.
You overdone it.
I overdone it. And I became an alcoholic during this time. So I would go to work drinking, and I would wake up the next morning with my hands swollen and blood all over me. And I would look at my wife and go, "Where am I bleeding from?" And she goes, "That's not your blood, motherfucker." You know, that's the kind of shit that I lived with for about a year. I was very much not good guy. And I will say that now that I look back on it, this violence should never become easy. That being able to do it should be the goal. Is we should understand the mental and emotional and physical aspects of it. And we should be able to do it easily, but the emotional effects should never be easy. And when it becomes easy, you need to reevaluate things. I will say that. Now, when you learn to detach yourself from the aspect or the thought that you may get hurt or damaged or even killed. I never once thought that I was going to get killed. There was a couple times in my career where I thought I may die, but there are very few in between. In those times I thought I may die, I was badly hurt, badly in pain, and had to resort to my blade to stop the fight or bites. I mean, I was forced to do some fucking major things to people, bite ears off and noses off. I've done that. And but they're very rare in between, and they happen once or twice, two times. I mean, that's the honest, 2 times. But other than that, you're not going to find that kind of violence. If you learn to finish quick and you learn to fucking pull trigger quick, you're not going to have to be thinking later, should I have bit his nose off? Because you finished quick and you got the fuck out of there. So we could talk about all these things you just asked, which is very valid, but the biggest thing is to recognize the ABC or attack behavioral cues. Know when the threat is imminent. Yeah, know when the threat's imminent, and people always say, you see all these little weekend combative or self-defense instructors, talk yourself out of it, talk yourself out of it. Well, if people could talk themselves out of it, a lot of innocent people would still be alive. Yeah. Obviously, we know that doesn't always work. So if you learn to finish quick with the most surgical and barbaric and blood force trauma or whatever way you choose to end it quickly without taking a life, that's always the plus side of the game. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? I don't want to ever kill anybody. I thought I was close twice in my entire career. And luckily, I'm a guy that could give you lots of experience talk, but I can never say I killed a person because I didn't. And I thank God for that. And where I know people who will say, yeah, I had to do that and I did it. You know, I was raised by these guys.
You know, I have diffused a lot of fights, like things that could have turned into a fight. And if I didn't have the right response, would have turned into a fight. I diffused a lot of them situations. By the way, when I work the doors, I'm known as the guy that does that.
You told me that.
Yeah, my colleague.
I had a guy that worked for me, my best friend. He worked for me for 20 years, and he's like you. He can go, but he was the well, you look like you can go. He doesn't, but he can. But he doesn't look like we do. Kind of no beard, you know. He's very big, blue, shiny eyes, big smile, little skinny, 150, 60 pounds. But he'll fucking monkey climb you and do you. But he was always the diffuser. He was the one that before they called me in, they called him in. You know? So I relate to that.
The thing is, when you see a few things, when you see how ugly the violence can get, and sometimes the aftermath of that violence, it just makes you think, man. It makes you think, right, okay, I could deal with that guy right now. I've been asked to ask him to live. I've asked him a first time. He's not very happy. his drink is not finished, and he's trying to fucking drag it. Yeah, I could. What are my options here? I could just fucking grab him, twist him, and get him out, which is what my colleague would do. And that's what he does most of the time. But me, I'm gonna be patient. I'm gonna talk to the guy. I'm gonna find a compromise. I'm gonna go, right. Okay, I'm gonna ask a plastic cup behind the bar so I can pour his drink in there. Tell him, look, mate, you can take your drink out. And I'm like that, yeah. Until there is a point where I know that the guy's taking the piss for real.
You see, if there was one thing, not to cut you off, but if there was one thing in my 20 years of doing this that I missed, it was that. I got to the point where like my biggest thing was, look, bro, you come back tomorrow, I'll buy you your first beer. I didn't pay for beer. I would just go behind the bar, give him a beer. A couple guys took that, and that seemed to work for me. I just never had that kind of patience like you. And I know that's a fault. I get it. But I think it's good. I think it's good to be able to know when to pull trigger, when not.
You know why? Because if you're known as the nice doorman, yeah, when shit actually hits the fan, you get people from the public coming and help you. Do you know what I mean? Because you've been nice to them, you've made, you've built that. It's a professional relationship, but it's still some sort of relationship. And so you're like, right, okay, I know that where I was working until not too long ago, I knew that when certain people are in, if shit hits the fan, they'll come and help. You know what I mean? But if I wasn't that nice with them, they probably would go, fuck this guy. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I get it. Yeah. And I had that reputation too, but not because I was nice to people in the bar, not people outside the bar. I was good at my job. I did it for 20 fucking years. I just, now that I'm older, I knew that I pulled trigger too quick sometimes. It's my only fault. I pulled trigger a little too quick. And a lot of the years, it was because it got so good to me and so easy for me where I'm like, fuck it, practice. And that you need to be careful with that. So when it comes down to us translating all this fucking experience to our students, we need to lay down a couple guidelines. We need to say, look, the firstest with the mostest is the bestest, but at the same time, know when to be the firstest. Know when to just escape.
That is the most difficult thing. That is the most difficult thing. When you got a person in front of you in your personal space, you got your fence up, and in your head, you're like, fuck, you try to read the guy. You're like, is he going to go? Is he not going to go? When is he going to go? When do I actually make the decision to preempt? Or that's the most difficult thing in the street. That's got nothing to do with martial arts. It's actually spotting the moment, that window of opportunity, whether it's reading the person's body language, facial expression. Do you remember in that series with Bruce Lee, that series where he teaches the blind guy long straight.
Yeah.
So he's teaching that blind guy, and at some point he gets the blind guy to hold the
best footage, by the way. People neglected. That was some of Bruce's best footage.
Yeah. And so the guy holds the kicking shield, yeah? And he kicks him, and his mate is behind, the guy in suit. And Bruce Lee kind of explained to him what Jeet Kune Do is, and he's like, oh yeah, I use my longest weapon, my sidekick, to your knee. It could be compared to your jab in boxing. And then the guy goes out talking about jab, and then Bruce Lee throws an eye jab at him and says, oh, you see, this time I intercepted your emotional tenseness. You see from your head to your fist how much time was lost. And that always stayed with me, because it's like interception of mental and emotional tenseness, and he spotted that and just went boom. Do you know what I mean? It's spotting that moment. It's really spotting that moment, and it's difficult, man, especially if you got the adrenaline pumping. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to do that as well while remaining calm, and while you don't want to show any fear. You don't want to show any.
So I think the biggest things too, in closing and all this, is that we didn't talk about breathing. We didn't talk about. I think breathing is, people hold their breath.
Big thing. to lower your heart rate.
Yes. Well, your muscles get tense. I mean, everything happens. You know. Also, looking through your eyebrows is important. People keep their jaw up and they look like this when they need to just lower. That changes the whole game. When you look through your eyebrows, when we shoot, when I teach my shooting courses, I don't teach here. In movies, I absolutely hate when action stars, they're doing shooting scenes, and every time the fake round goes off, they blink.
Yeah.
You look at Lethal Weapon 1, Mel Gibson at the shooting range. Love Mel Gibson to death, but he's blinking every time. When you take your eyesight and you tuck your jaw and you look through your eyebrows, it glues your eyes. If you do this with your students, you say, look straight, don't blink. They'll blink every time when you do this. But you say, tuck your jaw, look through your eyebrows, don't blink. It glues them open. So when we shoot, we glue the eyes open. Same thing when we fight, same thing here, fence, whatever, we glue the eyes open. This looks also more menacing. If you're up, hey, how are you? Or hey, how are you? This looks more menacing, and it also helps you circulate that emotional content, like we're saying. Instead of being like, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? All these little things. There's so much to this conversation, and some of it bleeds into the physical because
for sure, man,
we are very physical beings.
For sure.
But it also, it's all part of the mental game, man. Yeah.
You know, it's like in the military, and it's something that I teach as well sometimes to my students when I go abroad and I see people need to work on their mindset. I get them in line and I ask them to show me their killer face.
Oh,
show me your war face. And for some people, it's fucking difficult, man. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Some people have it straight away. They're like proper. Do you know what I mean? And then some people they try, but they can't find it. It's like if you go to a group of people and you ask every single one of them, okay, show me your war face. It's like you know straight away who needs some work on that.
Yeah, this is what I tell my students. I say that eye contact is important through life, but also a smile, because a smile can mean a lot of things. I can smile at you right now and go, I'm so happy to be here. But I can also smile at you and go, I'm going to fucking bite your nose off.
Yeah.
It's it's all a thing that, look, I tell everybody, Pi-Fi. It's very compared to the OODA loop. Obviously, that's why I did it. Perceive a threat, analyze threat, formulate, initiate. But if you put numbers above it, the goal is always, even if you add mental, the goal is always to, at the very end, let's say mental means attack or lethal or whatever. The goal is always to keep them at 1 and you stay at whatever. By doing this, you use everything you have, not just, you can do this without ever touching it. Good people could do. I made people piss themselves in my prom by just looking at them and invoking the fucking voice inflection. And throwing that, because energy is transferable. You throw that energy on them, and that may be enough. But if you have all of this, if you have that game, you'll never be attacked anyway.
It's like, once again, it's psychic attack, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
unless you put yourself in where we have put ourselves. But most of our students aren't going to be doing that. So if they're walking through life and they're making contact, they're doing little snide smiles when needed. They're keeping their shoulders back and their jaws up until they need to tuck it. They're doing all this shit. They'll never be attacked because attackers like easy prey.
Confident body language profile. Yeah. Lion doesn't go for another lion. It goes after the gazelle.
That's it.
The zebra.
Attackers like easy prey. I had this, I call it in my book, I say the fortunate unfortunate to be involved with a task force. And you can find news. I'll send you a Fox News article or a video of it. But in 2001 and 2, the FBI put together a task force to catch a well-known prolific serial killer in my town, Derek Todd Lee. I don't know if you've heard of him. And what they did was they got with local police departments. The FBI was involved, and I met all these guys. And an organization by the name of CASK, CASK, Citizens Against Serial Killers. They put all these forces together, and CAS's job was to find an instructor to ship around the state of Louisiana to educate women how to recognize and handle violence. Keep in mind, I'm 22 years old. I'm a young, cocky martial artist. They interviewed military, well-known. You remember the organization called RAD? Remember that RAD? I forgot what it stood for, but they were like the biggest women's rape prevention organization at the time. They interviewed military guys, police departments, and out of like 8 or 9 different organizations, they chose me. So I'm very grateful for it to this day. And what they did was they shipped me around every week to different parts of Louisiana. They were in Louisiana. There's a big casino boats everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was a big casino, big gambling squad in Louisiana. They would rent out entire floors. I had to wear earpieces, 150 women each class. It was, I've never, to this day, I haven't experienced anything quite like it. And because everybody was terrified because this guy was just killing, he was breaking his MO. Derek Todd Lee, if you want to do the research. He was breaking his MO. He was killing young, old, whatever. He killed one. Right after they said that he only attacks college kids, he attacked a senator's wife. She was in her 60s. Kidnapped her right 5 miles from where I lived at the time and murder her. And he would bury them under his house with his wife and kids. Crazy shit, man. And what they did was they let me go into prisons and interview serial killers. Well, not all serial, but people who have murdered people. They wasn't all serial. I don't think I interviewed any serials, just to be honest. But they killed 1 or 2 people. I don't know how many people you need to be serial. But I learned a lot because all these guys, they got a increased or a decreased sentence, or all of them were in there for life, but they got like commissary. They gave them shit to talk to me.
Yeah.
Interviewed 3 of them. And it was funny. All 3 of them, and this fucking formed my life after this. All 3 of them said one thing that stuck out. They said, basically, I'm not going to use their words, I'm going to use mine. They said, we were training to do what we do daily, where nobody else is training. We were going to the range. We would tie our bed mattresses on doors and duct tape them and hit them with ice picks all day long. Because that's the weapon we chose. We would strangle, we would use fishing wire and attach sticks to them and strangle shit and practice holding it till it, in our mind, it quit moving. I get emotional talking about this shit right now, but they were training daily when most people don't train but once or twice a week. People that run guns, people that carry guns in the United States, they go to the range maybe once a week, a square range shooting paper, and they think they're fucking gunfighters. And these serial killers, these murderers were training their craft daily. Their craft could be abducting, it could be ice picking people, it could be shooting. One guy I interviewed was just using an old ass fucking revolver that his daddy gave him. 6-shooter, shouldn't even be running. And he was using it, a little 38 special, and he was shooting it daily, he said. He said, I loved it. It was target practice. Then I went practice my target practice, he told me. Yeah. This changed my mindset, 22 years old. So I would go and teach these women, and eventually they caught Derek Todd Lee, and years later I get an email from a cop that I work with, and he said, hey, good news for you. I'm like, what? He said, Derek was just about dead in his cell. So you can take that for what it is, but I'm like the Joker said in Batman, I'm glad you're dead. You know what I mean? But it changed my mind. What it taught me was this: the bad guys are training daily. Why aren't you?
Yeah, man.
That's what I'm fucking trying to say.
They're training daily.
Why aren't you? You know?
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
You gotta get to that level, man. You know?
Yeah.
It's like Goku, man. Always training.
And it's not even physically, too. That's what I learned. That's what this whole thing's about. It's not physically.
Mental and
It's
emotional
how many
preparation.
people in the martial art world today are actual students of real violence. How many martial artists, even well-known, you pick the most well-known fucking guy. How much does he actually study real fucking chaos and violence? Very few. Very few. I can name them on one hand.
It's true. It's not too many, man.
No.
Bro, that was good, man. That was good. We put a lot of content out there. I'm not gonna lie, it was not structured as I thought it would be, but
Nice.
we managed to put everything in there, which is good. And the funny thing is that, like I said, you know, I had that list of things that I wrote, the stuff that I wanted to speak about, and I started to speak about one thing, and you were talking about that, then you were jumping onto something that was at the end of my list.
Hey, that's good. Yeah.
But the good thing is we managed to put all in there. So
we
really
did.
we
didn't talk about the chemical response as much, the tunnel vision, adrenal dump,
we
upset stomach, auditory declension.
Which we mentioned it. We could actually dive in that next time. But basically, really for the people, what people should take from what we spoke about today, I'd say that, okay, for those that really need it, learning to develop on switch cold clinical aggression is very interesting, and it's very important in my sense, okay? But what is even more important than that is train yourself to keep it under control and not to lose control, and train yourself to know when to actually deploy it. And that's what you were saying, when to pull the trigger and when not to pull the trigger. And if you pull the trigger once, is it enough to deal with the situation at hand? Or
let me say this: the hardest thing, Paul Vunak used to tell me this. You have to learn to manipulate the dial. But if you rip
dial, we call it.
Rip it. The hardest thing for people who get good at ripping it, and I got very good at fucking ripping it. But the hardest thing is to be able to switch it back off.
Yes.
I think that's just as important. And not everybody that's seeing this is going to be like, oh, I'm good at violence, I can rip it. But when you get good and you experience enough of it, you know, let's be honest. When people come, if you're not born with a gold spoon and living on a mountaintop in a mansion, if you're born with some struggle, you're going to be able to handle struggle a little more than others. That's just the way it is. It is the way it is. Your lifestyle, your upbringing is conditioning for you early on. It really is.
Yeah. But ultimately, the goal, the big objective there is to find peace. And it's really what it is about. It's all that stuff, all that violence, all that anger, all that rage, all that hate. We have to go through it. But eventually, at some point, the end goal is to find happiness.
And sometimes the only way to find peace is through extreme violence.
Yeah. There is that Latin saying that said, if you want to find peace, you got to prepare for war.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Billy, is there anything that you want to plug in? If you want to plug in your website, any seminars that you got upcoming, any
Man, I got a lot of seminars on the docket. We do a lot in Florida, Chicago. I just got back from Chicago not long ago, but you guys are always welcome to come see me. Just love.
Bro, I'd love it, man. I'd
love this. One day, me and you go do a seminar together.
Sure, man. Sure. That sounds like
where you are. I mean, there's always been some talks for me doing that. There were some talks in 2020 before COVID, but that derailed it. But
bro, if you come to the UK, you can crash on my sofa here, bro.
Okay, man. Okay, man. How far are you from like Lee Morrison and those guys?
So Lee's down south. Lee's down Sway, like New Forest. next to
How
Southampton and
far?
all them places. I'm in Manchester, so I'm more north myself.
You got to fly or you can drive?
Yeah, no, you can drive there.
How about Rick Young?
So Rick Young
He's
is
a
is it Edinburgh? Edinburgh, I think he is in Glasgow. That's way up north.
got to fly to that.
No, you can drive as well, but it's just gonna take you. It's just gonna take you a little while to get there, man.
I'd love to, man. Fuck, one day, brother. One day.
Yeah, man. Hopefully,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
As I said,
When are you getting here, man? You'd love it here, brother.
bro. That definitely, man. The US is definitely a place I want to
do
come
a
and
seminar on the beach,
Yeah,
like this month, June. Well, I don't. We're still in May. June, we got a big seminar. Probably 50, 60, 70 people will show up right on the beach, and I'm training in the ocean. I'm taking them in the ocean.
Oh,
We're
bro,
gonna
that sounds good,
them in
man.
the water. Oh, it's gonna be awesome, man.
That sounds appealing. We'll definitely talk about stuff like that for the future, man. Hopefully, that's gonna take off. All that slowly gonna take off. So, like soon, next week, on the 11th of June, we got the Kaizen martial
Oh
art.
yeah.
So Lucci is the organizer. So I'm gonna be there.
I did his podcast once. Good. We had a good talk.
Yeah, he's a good lad, Lucci. I like him. He's invited me to the martial art expo, and then after that we got the Festival of Martial Arts as well on the 31st. So what?
Are you teaching at the Kazi's at Lucy's thing?
Say again.
Are you teaching at the?
Yeah. I'm teaching at both Kaizen Martial Art Expo and the Festival of
Film that shit, man.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, we'll do, man. I'm surprised he's not invited you, man, to do
that. He has. He has. I just can't get there yet. Oh, yeah. In 2020, when I did, we were talking. He was trying to get me there. And it just, COVID hit and shit happened. But, Oh, no, but it's in the plans.
It's in the pipeline. It's in the pipeline. Look, what I'm going to try to do is to get like an instructor every year, get like a guest instructor to come and teach. So this year I'm having Peter Shara from Melbourne, Australia, in October to come and teach. But we'll chat, bro. Hopefully next year, man, we'll try and do something together, man.
I'll get there eventually, man. I mean, I have a few people trying to get me down there. Australia too. I got a huge following in Australia, man. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah.
Australia, man. Yeah, I've never been there, man. There's so many places where I'd love to go.
My wife's terrified. She's like, when we go, I'm not going. I'm like, you're going. She goes, no. She said everything kills you there.
The snakes, the spiders,
the water. But it's got some of the most beautiful beaches you'll ever see.
Yeah. Full of sharks.
Yes. So, guys, follow me, www.empowerusa.net, EMPOWER USA, or my online video organization, www.proactionvideos.com.
That's great. That's great.
I hope we covered, like you said, we're never, me and you, we're just like, fucking let's just get it out.
Oh, man, yeah. No, but that's great, man. Every time there's some new topics, man. I'm sure next time we'll find something crispy to speak about.
You see this bird flying behind me?
I think I've seen.
One day we're going to do these, and I'm going to have an alligator sitting in my lap the whole time. One day, I promise you.
Yeah, man. So for people that want to follow me as well, so there is the website is not up yet, but it should be up soon. It's going to be www.adrenalinecombatives.com. And people can also follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. It's quite simple. It's Adrenaline with an E at the end, Adrenaline Combatives. And I got a TikTok now as well that slowly I'm starting to put myself there as well.
I don't quite know how to use it yet.
I've seen you there. Bro, you need to learn how to fucking play with it, man. I'm learning, slowly learning about it.
I'm learning, man. I'm learning. I need someone to just, are you getting good at it?
Well, slowly but surely, man. I'll tell you a bit about it. What I've discovered is that, TikTok is...
I don't even know how to use I really don't even know how to use Instagram yet, brother.
Yeah.
I'm kind of still Facebook.
Yeah,
You know?
Facebook is my main platform too. But you know what? TikTok, you can reach a lot of people on TikTok if you're smart. And the
Right.
thing about TikTok is that it's a funny video platform. It was created for people to laugh, for funny
Well,
videos.
let's talk me and you off the record one day. Let's just tell me points on it, because I don't know anything about it. I do have one, but yeah.
Well, the thing is that you need to be ready to put a bit of a funny video every now and then to boost your views and stuff.
Oh, I can do it.
Yeah,
I can go knife fight out there in a thong. I can do it.
It's like, have you seen my shark video?
Yeah.
I put it on there, and it got me like 37.4 thousand views.
Oh wow.
Just because of that bullshit. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
that's what
How many you use YouTube a lot?
I use YouTube a lot, but the thing is, I'm growing my audience on YouTube. Unfortunately, bro, I got like a couple of hundred, almost like 300 videos on YouTube. Good stuff. I must have like 2,000 followers. So slowly but surely, man, it's gonna go up, man.
Yeah, no, it will. I'm at the 10,000 mark, but you can't get. It's hard to get past that 10,000 mark, brother.
But there are ways to do it, and
I don't know it.
I'll speak to you about it. Like I'm getting on it slowly, bro. I'm getting on it slowly because I can't stand the fact that there are some people. I'm sorry to say, but I don't like. I'm not judgmental, but some people are shit. But they got
100,000 or more,
hundreds of thousands of followers, and I'm like, dude, how can these people have that many?
Well, I told my wife the other day, I'm like, these little girls shaking their ass in bathing suits with 300. I'm like, we need to train, and you wear a thong and a bra, and she's like, no.
Oh, man.
I'll talk her into it. I'll talk her.
So, for people that want to watch this podcast, or if you want to watch any podcast that I did before, we got 3 with Billy Brown. We got more with many other people. I got Jared Wihonge soon. In a week or a week and a half. I got him. I'm trying to get Kelly McCann on as well. He said yes. Yeah, Kelly McCann said yes. So
he's one of my heroes.
Yeah, Kelly McCann is amazing.
Oh, man.
So yeah, so we got some good people coming on, and more good people. Stay tuned. If you want to see those podcasts, just go on the live section of the YouTube channel Adrenaline Combatives, and you will find everything.
Awesome, brother. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I hope they like it. I enjoyed it.
I'll see you soon, guys.
Take care. Bye, buddy.